Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto has harem with Hinata Ino FemHaku FemKyuu, Kurenai Anko. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Paladeus and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Story. Uzumaki Naruto looked out over the expansive field in front of him, the staging area of what would soon be the final battle between the forces of leaf, sand and grass against the forces of sound, stone, cloud, and mist. Each of those villages currently in the battle against them had some form of vendetta or qualm with Konoha in one form or fashion. Sound was led by a man who turned missing Nin on them, Stone had a long-standing grudge against Konoha's Yondaime, and by extension, his son after learning Naruto himself was the famous ninja's child. Then Cloud simply wanting to be a Kugen and Mist hated all bloodlines, which Konoha favored and allowed to live and prosper within their walls. Right now, the huge plain was a pristine green of beautiful nature, but on the other side, barely visible to his enhanced eyesight granted by the Kyuubi no Kitsune, he could see the combined army of everyone against his side. "What's the matter, Naruto-kun?" Hyuga Hinata came up and wrapped her arms around her boyfriend of 2 months' chest from behind. "We're sorely outnumbered this time around," he whispered. Hinata hugged him tighter to her and nuzzled his neck. "Sand has only about 200 ninja left, grass about 1800, and our own are down to barely a 3000. We'll make it through this, Naruto-kun. We also do and always will." Naruto was silent a few minutes as they both took in the world around them. "I have an idea as to how I can have their numbers, but I'll be useless afterwards." Naruto knew he was in it deep when she stopped her nuzzling. The fingernails digging into his chest were also a good hint. "You're not using that jutsu." Her voice came out as soft as always, but he couldn't miss her killer intent. "It's too dangerous. Don't make me use it to keep you from doing this." Naruto sighed and turned towards his girlfriend, already knowing he couldn't get into more trouble. "I can take out at least half of their numbers in the beginning, my Tenshi-chan. I can make things that much easier on our soldiers." He grabbed her hands and pulled them together in his own and kissed her knuckles. "We're outnumbered 7-1 right now. I have to do this. I can take out far more of them this way than in any other, and our soldiers won't be overwhelmed from the beginning." "I know," she interrupted him before he could keep going. "I know. But that doesn't mean I like it." Naruto smiled and hugged her close. After Naruto learned to control Kyuubi's chakra, they learned that he would be corrupted the longer he was under its effects to the point of attacking anyone but Hinata, who he considered his mate, after only a few minutes. Now that they had put a special seal on a demonic artifact, Naruto was effectively under Hinata's every command while he was using the Kyuubi's chakra, protecting those around him. "I suppose it has to be done." Within Naruto, a very large, red fox became infuriated. Using several of the cracks existing within the seal thanks to constant use over the past 3 years, she forced her influence and mind over Naruto's own. Ignoring the searing pain this brought about thanks to the seal in place that kept her power under Hinata's control. "Like hell," she yelled through clenched teeth. "Enter mind. Talk." Losing the fight against the seal, she allowed herself to be flung back into her seal to await a shocked Hinata and confused Naruto's arrival. What the hell?" Naruto gasped. He could tell that the Kyuubi was worried about something, but unsure of exactly what it could be that would convince her to fight the seals in place strongly enough to actually break through them temporarily just to get out a message. The pain was severe enough that it had caused her to pass out the last time she tried. "I don't know," Hinata said. "Kyuubi just broke through and said she wanted to talk to us." Naruto had his hands on his knees as he panted. Pain wasn't exactly one way when the Kyuubi tried to push through like that. He just didn't get it anywhere nearly as bad. "Do we go?" he asked. Hinata shrugged in return. "We've not got anything to lose." Naruto nodded and mumbled about masochistic, bastard foxes. The two went to Hinata's private tent next to the Godame's for being her current apprentice and sat cross-legged on the ground, facing each other with their knees touching, and began to meditate with Naruto taking Hinata directly into his mindscape. It had changed over the years, becoming more of a large building with rooms filled with symbolic representations of all that he knew. But neither was willing to spend time going over everything and instead went to the library. It was the one place, aside from her room, that the Kyuubi would frequent. She refused to say why, but it was rare for her to not be there. Sadly, Hinata's control was only over the Kyuubi's power and not the Kyuubi herself. Stepping into the room, they saw the Kyuubi in her human form sitting in a very large, overstuffed, leather chair. It was the only thing in the room that was of gargantuan size aside from the bookshelves themselves. She easily sat on the cushion that was large enough for all three of them with plenty of room to spare. As she looked up, her red eyes glinted with pure rage as the choker around her neck flared a deep and golden honey color. "You, Uzumaki Naruto, are an idiot." Naruto blinked. Of all the things he had expected her to want to say or talk about, that most certainly wasn't one of them. "What the hell are you talking about?" You put us both in the agony of activating that seal, and that is what you have to say to me. Kyuu scoffed and rolled her eyes. Bah! Take a seat and I'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. She waited while the two did just that, wary of anything she may try on them. Now let me start from the beginning, and keep quiet while I talk. There's a lot to get through. She situated herself and set her book down beside herself on the chair. Alright. You know your dad put the Shiki Fion on you, along with a few other seals to let you use my power, and that I can't escape without instant death for the both of us. Correct? Still confused, both Naruto and Hinata nodded. Good. Now here's the part that you didn't know. Hell, I didn't even know it until about 2 years ago, and even then, I wasn't sure until you tried that damn jutsu and… What are you talking about, Kyuu? Naruto interrupted, causing the vixen in front of him to glare. I was getting to that, brat. Now, until 3 years ago, you used my power sporadically and only when you needed to. Since getting that damn necklace made up, you've been using my power like I was a battery for you. What you don't know, however, is that my chakra doesn't replenish itself. What? Kyuu nodded and sighed. Brat, the last time you used that jutsu you're planning on using now, it took up over a third of my power. Because my body was from the demonic realm, or summon's realm to you humans, it disappeared back to my original lair after I was sealed within you. That means all of my chakra at that time was sealed within you while my body is stuck there, living, but not alive. However, since I'm not producing chakra, it's like you're dipping out of a well that has just barely under half of its water still in it. Regardless of legend, I don't actually have infinite chakra. I just have so damned much that it would take generations of you pathetic flesh bags to see it even get dented. Wait, Hinata began, you're saying that any time Naruto-kun uses your power, he's draining what you have? Kyuu nodded, ignoring being interrupted again since she understood. Correct. But not only that, once my chakra is gone, I cease to exist with the way this seal bound me. And without my power, which Naruto's body has learned to live with, will fail, causing him to die as well. Both of them suddenly understood what she was saying. If he used her power without being careful, the two of them would simply die. And he was about to do a jutsu that nearly take away what was left. But I have to do this. Too many will die if I don't. I can watch what I use afterwards and… Foolish mortal! Using the jutsu again while you have access to all of my power now will use up almost, if not all, of my power. We will die. That's why the lecture forbid you from using it when you went to rescue the Tanuki. Naruto quickly glanced at Hinata and then back at Kyuu, thoughts of helping his friends in their battle no matter the cost flashing through his mind. Hinata, however, was the smarter of the two and bashed him upside the back of his head. But Tenchi-chan, don't you dare Tenchi-chan me. You're too important to this whole thing than to throw your life away on a jutsu that we don't even know will take out as many as we think it will. Naruto flinched back as she rose to her feet and leaned over him, the Kyuu watching with amusement. Naruto was a 19-year-old man, one of the strongest of his village even without her own power, and was cowering in fear from the girl in front of him. If time weren't so important, she'd love to watch this continue, but sadly, they were on a very tight schedule. If you please, I have another option available to us. Both Naruto and Hinata looked at Kyuu in surprise, blinking, as if they'd forgotten she were there. Really, you'd think that I wasn't important or something. Pfft. What do you mean, Kyuu? Kyuu sighed as Hinata sat back down and Naruto pressed himself against the far edge, aware from her ire. Listen. I currently have just a little over half of my original power. That is still a massive amount compared to your whole village. What I propose is to go back in time to stop many of the deaths you now have and empower yourselves with your current knowledge. You mean, you can actually take us back in time? Kyuu nodded and held up a finger. I can and will. Under a few conditions to keep this from happening all over again. Naruto and Hinata looked at each other before Hinata tuned to the demon and nodded. We can at least hear you out. Very well. What I suggest is going back in time, and you not using my power at all. Instead, we do something different. Like what? Naruto asked. While I'm within you, I cannot regain any lost chakra. However, I can, she paused and made a face to show she was highly displeased with this option, give you the Kitsune summoning contract. You won't be able to summon anyone other than myself, as I'll have to write the contract up, but it will work, and you may summon me for battle anytime you wish. By being summoned, I'll be given my old body and my chakra will replenish each time I'm summoned, so it's a winning situation for us all. That's it. All we have to do is offer to summon you at any time other than using your power? Kyuu looked a little sheepish for a moment, and looked away from the two in front of her. No. You see, when you go back, it will be only your memories. Your chakra levels, your physical attributes and appearances, all of those will be the same you of your past. It will be just like it was then, only your current minds. Because of this, your chakra control, both of you, will be nearly astronomical, since control is made up of physical and mental energies, the control being mental and the levels being physical. But to make you both go back in time, or either of you, really, you can't be human. You will need to blend with me a little. Naruto was suddenly skeptical while Hinata was curious. And exactly what does that mean? You will gain increased speed, strength, senses, and a thrill for battle. Also, your chakra levels will raise greatly, but nothing like what you have now. You will effectively become Hanyu, or half-demons. Human in all regards with all the benefits. I can control that much, at least. You'll gain tails, ears, clawed hands, and the senses like those of a fox, except your hands will just have stronger and thicker nails. But you'll be able to hide these changes at will, so don't worry about that, she quickly said when she saw Naruto taking a deep breath to yell. Doing this at all makes this merger impossible to escape, as it will happen regardless, but you will remain your human selves. Though the merger will also create a bond between the two of you, Kyuu watched as they seemed to think it over until Hinata asked the question she'd been waiting for. Exactly what kind of a bond is that? Kyuu fidgeted slightly before answering, unsure how they would take this. A bond of mates. Hinata's face erupted into a fierce blush as a huge grin spread across her visage. Naruto himself paled drastically and was about to yell out at the Kyuu until he noticed Hinata's face. That wasn't the face of a girl who was upset with the idea. Hinata-chan? What do? Naruto looked between the two females nervously. What do you think of this? Hinata got up with a smile and kissed him deeply. That this is a great idea, she said brightly before turning back to Kyuu. And you still have enough strength to send us all back, even at half? Kyuu nodded. Yes. You see, everything you know and see outside will cease to exist. We will go backwards and erase everything from the point of our return, and everything will alter depending on what we change. By going backwards, our energies will take over that from whatever we had at that point in time as we go back. Basically, we'll be getting recharged by our past selves as we pass each moment with whatever energy that they had at the time. She waited a few moments while they considered it before speaking again. We really don't have a lot of time to think it over, however. Even getting slight recharges from our past selves, it won't be enough to keep us going. Just allow us to go back that tiny fraction of a second more and, with the war about to start, we can't afford to waste anything. Why did you wait so long to offer this? If it has to happen, shouldn't you have offered it when you realized it? Kyuu was surprised Naruto had caught that, but answered nonetheless. I would have, but I was honestly hoping to come up with a way to separate us so that I wouldn't cease to exist. She shuddered as the idea of simply not being flashed through her mind. I would rather live in your fuzzy navel than not at all. If I died this way, I wouldn't even go back to hell or heaven. I would simply cease to be. The two humans watched as Kyuu's eyes widened as she spoke and a frightened light lit behind them. You can't understand how horrible it would be to live hundreds of millions of years and then be faced with something like that. As Kyuu closed her eyes and tried to calm down and stop her slight shaking, Naruto and Hinata looked at one another, a silent agreement made almost immediately. What do we have to do? Shocked out of her attempts to calm herself, Kyuu flinched slightly when Hinata spoke before nodding. If you're ready, we can go now. You're already touching, and you're giving permission, which is all I need now. I've had everything else prepared already. There's just one more thing I'm going to ask. Naruto and Hinata watched as they watched Kyuu squirm in her seat. What's that, Kyuu? I know I'll have to be good, and I promise to. Even with the necklace you've got now, which you can remake in the past, you'll be able to be sure of that, but, she blushed lightly and squirmed a little more before squaring her shoulders. I want you to summon me at least twice a week so that I can experience the world again. I can control my size and transform into my human form that you see now. It's lonely in here all by myself, she finished with a whisper. She had spent years, centuries really, all by herself in her past. But she had always experienced life through her own eyes and her own experiences. Living life through Naruto, and being forced to experience what he did, she yearned for the very same things he had, but didn't have anyone within his mind to fulfill the needs that he ended up with in so many different people. Naruto and Hinata, however, simply saw this as what it seemed. A soul who was alone for 19 years and didn't want to be anymore. The room was spinning as Naruto tried to sit up and get his bearings. It had taken several minutes before the back and forth motion seemed to stop, and the room finally steadied itself enough for him to truly look around. He saw dirty clothes strewn about the bedroom, empty ramen cups everywhere, and trash cans filled to overflowing. Sweet Kami, this place is a dump, he groused as he crawled out of bed, only to stumble and fall flat on his face. Oh. What the hell? Ha! That was brilliant! What the hell is going on? Kyuu laughed at Naruto even harder than she was. You're shorter than you were before. You tried to move around like you were before you went back. Ha. Naruto growled about karma and having displeased some god somewhere in a past life as he got up and showered, then put on his orange jumpsuit. Oi, Fox? When did we go back to? he asked as he noticed his old goggles where he always left it until he got his forehead protector. I'm not sure. It doesn't work that way. We went backwards though. Naruto sighed as he realized he was really beginning to dislike having gone back. I guess I'll find Hinata-chan and we can find out. If I've still got this thing, then we must be in the academy somewhere. Getting everything he had, along with a blank scroll and pen, he left quickly after creating several kage bunshin to clean up his apartment, and made his way towards the academy, just in case he had classes that day. Hinata sat up and looked around, having much better stability than Naruto did. Looking over her clothes and at her calendar, she realized they were only a month from the genin selection exams. With a smile, she got out of bed and carefully oriented herself as she went to take a quick bath, re-establish herself with her height, and reach and meet up with Naruto. They had a lot to talk about, and plenty of time for a Saturday. After getting dressed in her usual outfit for the time period she had re-entered, she began her walk to exit the house, enjoying the sight of her home still undamaged from war. She left the grounds with a large smile on her face and a bounce in her step. 3 years of war were simply erased from her mental image over Konoha as she looked at everything with fresh, new eyes. As quickly as she could, she went directly towards Naruto's apartment, and found an orange blob rushing off towards the academy. With a smile, she took off after him, closing the distance rapidly before tackling him to the ground. Both went tumbling along the ground, the villagers looking on in shock and curiosity until they came to a stop with Naruto on his back and Hinata straddling his stomach with a large, cheesy grin. Hello, Hinata-chan, he wheezed, still disoriented from the sudden attack. Hello, Naruto-kun. She got off and grabbed him by the ear, getting a yelp of shock from the boy. Now come on. There's no way you're keeping those horrible jumpsuits anymore. She began to drag Naruto as he hunched over slightly and walked quickly to keep up with her. The villagers who witnessed the whole event chuckled as they watched the Hyuga heiress drag Naruto around. Yamanaka Ino was minding her parents' flower shop when she saw a shy, demure little Hyuga Hinata literally dragging her long-standing crush by his ears, mindless of the begging and pleading he was doing to be released and that he'd follow her willingly if she just let him go. Mom! Something came up, I've gotta go! Ino ran out of the door to her shop, ignoring the jingle of the bell and ran up to Hinata. Hey you two, what's up? Naruto shuffled over so he could look at Ino as he spoke to her. Apparently, we decided orange isn't a very good color for a ninja and I am currently being convinced into going and getting something new. Ino snickered as she looked at Hinata, obviously the one in charge. Want any help? Hinata thought about it for a moment before agreeing. In the previous timeline, she had never been one for shopping. It was either a branch member who did whatever shopping was necessary or she went with the girls while they shopped. Ino's experience would be very helpful while looking for deals and, Hinata had to admit, the girl had a fashion sense greater than her own. That should be okay. We're going to be getting him a full wardrobe, and some new equipment, so it may take a little while. Are you okay with that? Ino's smile only became predatory. No, they both replied, causing the boy to let out a whimper. Hinata turned back to Ino and frowned. I'll allow it under one condition. I don't want to hear any crap about the Uchiha that is unneeded, do you understand? Ino's eyes widened as Hinata voiced her demands, unsure how any girl could not want to talk about him. Why not? Hinata raised her hand sharply, instantly quieting the other girl before forcing Hinata to kill something. Because I have absolutely no interest in him, and would rather not talk about something so mundane, or droll as he is. You have the right to stop me from talking about a topic you don't want to speak about, or talk about the Uchiha with someone else if you meet them, but not to me. Ino still wasn't sure how any sane girl could not like Uchiha Sasuke. The boy was a gift from above. But then again, this was the same girl who liked Uzumaki, dead last, Naruto. I can live with that. Hinata smiled and dragged a squirmy, squeaky Naruto to one of her favorite clothing shops. They were a bit more upscale than Naruto would have probably tried to enter on his own, but she knew they'd cater to him at her wish. The couple who ran the store were simply too professional and nice. As they entered, a bell tingled from above the door, alerted the couple to their presence, and Ino turned to Hinata. Hinata, isn't this a little more ritzy than Naruto can afford? From beneath Hinata's hand, Naruto piped up his own thought. Especially when you brought me before I could get any extra aside from what I carry for lunch. Hinata let go of Naruto and smiled brightly. I'll put everything on the Hyuga tab, you can just pay me back later. Alright. Ino was surprised Naruto would allow Hinata to do such a thing. That he allowed it meant he knew he could afford it or thought he'd be able to get out of having to pay at a later time. But that seemed to go against everything Naruto was and his beliefs. She may not know the kid on much of a personal level, but his values were hard to miss. Good evening, Lady Hinata. How may we assist you today? Matsuki, the wife of Dojin, was the nicer and less formal of the two and always treated Hinata more like a granddaughter than client. A fact that almost always gave Dojin a heart attack at the familiarity. It didn't help the man's disposition that his wife was like that with almost every child that entered. Hello, Mitsuki. I've decided that Naruto-kun here has finally outgrown orange. They all ignored Naruto's grumbling as she continued, and would like to get him looking respectable. We're going for a whole new wardrobe today. Mitsuki nodded as she grabbed Naruto's arms and squeezed, more like testing meat before buying it and then poking and prodding the boy in the chest. Also, Mitsuki, could we close down the store while we get our things? I'd like to not be bothered. Naruto was paling faster than if he'd seen a ghost. Just how much do you expect me to get? He was again ignored as Mitsuki nodded and simply closed the door and locked it. For the next hour and a half, Hinata and Ino pointed out materials and designs and argued over what he would look best in. After 10 minutes, and Mitsuki's taking control and saying he was her customer, she finally sided with half of Hinata's ideas and half of Ino's, making both girls happy and appreciative as the new idea was better than both of their own. From there, Naruto became nothing more than a life-size dress-up doll, getting poked with pins to hold materials up and moved about as it was faster than telling him how to position himself. Ino, for her part, was in a state of confusion for nearly the entirety of the visit to the shop. Unless Naruto was working with his underwear, he had apparently no issues with taking anything else off in another's presence. While she was initially shocked, and then about to yell at the boy for public displays of indecency, she got a good glimpse of the boy beneath the shirt, and her anger was washed away by pure shock. The boy had muscles. While he certainly wasn't near the league of a bodybuilder, he was lean and had muscles that put even her Sasuke-kun to shame. She, and all of the girls, had known when to peek on some of Sasuke's training sessions, and he would sometimes go without a shirt. She remembered being so impressed, but even the last Uchiha had nothing on Naruto. Every movement from the blonde had some kind of ripple effect on the muscles she could see, and that caused her to stand and stare more than help with anything else. Hinata and Mitsuki were so wrapped up in Naruto's clothes that they didn't even notice, and Naruto himself had, from almost the beginning, just closed his eyes and allowed himself to be handled as they saw fit. It would be over that much quicker. After an hour and a half, Mitsuki had all the measurements she would need and combinations for each item of clothing, and would have them ready in a week. They originally offered to deliver the new clothes, but no one wanted to risk that in Naruto's neighborhood. They didn't get too much, seeing as how they were going to be working out and growing larger rather soon, but they got 2 weeks' worth of clothing for the sake of having it. Ino was very surprised when Naruto offered to buy her an outfit as thanks for her help and gladly accepted, getting a pretty summer dress in a light red color. After leaving, they made their way to Tenten's family's weapon shop. They had nothing against Naruto in the future, so they made a quick stop for Naruto's new equipment there since it was on the way to the ninja outfitting store that all of the Hyuga clan used for their business. They had the best of everything and the widest selection available. They made sure of that when the wealthiest clan solely used them for literally all of their needs. Naruto and Ino followed her into the large store and looked around in surprise at the huge assortment of weapons and jutsu scrolls. Ah, Hyuga-sama, the proprietor began. What can I do for you and your? He paused and sneered at Naruto, being one of those who truly hated the boy companions. We're here to completely outfit Naruto with new equipment and get a few new items for myself as well, Hinata stated, already planning on getting a few scrolls and outfits. Stop your foolish ramblings. Everyone around her snapped their heads to her and stared in open-mouthed shock. I know exactly what you are speaking about, and that wasn't Naruto. It was something else. The proprietor stepped back in fear and shock as Hinata took a step closer to him. You will either outfit my friends or I swear to you that you will lose all Hyuga business for the rest of your time in Konoha. I don't think you'll do too well in your profit margin for the products you buy before being able to sell them quickly enough. Do you? The man before Hinata shuddered and quickly plastered a smile onto his face. I'm sure we can work something out. There's no need to be hasty now, Hyuga-sama. I'm sure we can outfit each of your friends with anything they need. He rushed over and put up the closed sign on the door so the very influential Hyuga heiress wouldn't be disturbed and as few people as possible would see the demon brat within his store. They quickly set Naruto up with black cargo pants that held many loops to hold scrolls, which Naruto held a penchant for using after his time training with Jiraiya. He'd really turned into a pack rat, saving any books he'd obtained, weapons he found and equipment and supplies so he always had them if and when he needed them. One of the downsides of growing up without much was that he had a tendency to squirrel things away. And he'd already made plans to do just that once again. It was actually a habit that had helped out in the future. He had learned almost nothing of ninjutsu or genjutsu, but Jiraiya had plans of turning him into a true apprentice, starting with seals and pure physical conditioning to use more of the Kyuubi's chakra at a time, and Naruto had taken the bit on seals to heart when he learned the yandere learned everything from the old pervert. He was given a large assortment of dark green, black, white, dark brown and camouflage shirts and new combat boots instead of the sandals he used to wear at that point in the time period. Ino and Hinata made sure that all of his undershirts were reinforced with a protective layer of wire mesh, and Hinata was also very sure to add a metal protection plate to cover Naruto's groin. Why on earth do you want to put that on his pants? Ino finally asked after Hinata finished her specifications to the shop owner. Because Ino-chan, Hinata demurred. I rather like it, and don't want to see it come to harm. It's a vulnerable location on any male, after all, and very debilitating. While the statement itself was true, Hinata didn't mention how that very attack is what caused Shikamaru to lose a fight roughly 5 years from that date, and end up getting killed. To Ino, however, it sounded far more gossip-worthy. You like it, she whispered, a slow grin showing up on her face. And exactly what do you like about it? Have you seen something you shouldn't have, she whispered, leaning in close to the Hyuga heiress conspiratorially. Hinata, on her part, blushed lightly, not having actually meant to say that first bit. It just kind of came out. I do have the Byakugan, Ino-chan. I can see through anything. He's twice as big as any of the other boys in our class, she told her quietly, actually enjoying the look of shock on Ino's face. So you've seen his? Not directly, no, she quickly assured Ino. It wasn't a lie, actually. They had been dating for a few months before their return and they hadn't really gone too far into their relationship physically due in part because of the war, but mostly because she wanted to wait, and Naruto was very willing to wait until she was sure. That didn't mean she didn't have her moments of weakness, however. So Ino fidgeted. Have you seen Sasuke-kun's? Hinata nodded reluctantly. It's inevitable. I'm given all-around vision like a bubble. I have no choice who I see. Ino grabbed her by the shoulders and shook the girl a little roughly. Well? Hinata grabbed Ino's hand and held up Ino's index finger to herself, making Ino wonder why she was looking at her own hand. That finger is bigger than he is. Ino's eyes widened in mute shock. All of her dreams and all of her fantasies had always had him as large as apparently Naruto seemed to be. But this didn't seem right. Sasuke is the last Uchiha. He is supposed to be perfect so he can resurrect his clan. There's no way Sasuke-kun is that small. You're just... Just what, Ino? Hinata asked with ice in her voice. You know I don't care for him in any way. You know that I have no reason to lie and that I am not the type to want to make my Naruto-kun appear to be any better than anyone else for no reason. Ino blinked in shock as Hinata once again seemed to speak up and make her voice heard. Besides, you can enter others' minds. Have you really never entered Sasuke's and looked? Ino's face blushed an incredible crimson, and sweat formed over her brow as she looked around nervously. Actually, I never thought about it that way. Suddenly, the possibilities seemed endless. So many days left before Genin selection exams, so many trips to the restroom. With a smile, Hinata left Ino to her thoughts as she decided to help Naruto with making sure that protective plate fit properly. She was a very happy soon-to-be kunoichi. Naruto and Hinata finally got all of Naruto's things and sealed them in a scroll temporarily. They didn't want to leave all of his new things loose around his apartment, or anything in case any of the villagers got curious about his new things. They could remember that happening until a little after the Chunin exams when the villagers found out what he'd done for them. Those storage seals were going to be a godsend. Now, however, they were in Naruto's apartment with Hinata sitting in Naruto's lap with her back against him as he held her in his arms. So, what's our plan? We've got a month before the Genin selection exams and then team placements. Hinata snuggled deeper into Naruto's embrace as she voiced her concerns. I don't want to be on a team with Kiba again. The bastard made far too many passes and peeped on Kurenai-sensei and myself too many times. I'll end up killing him this time around. Well, I'm going to try and fail the Genin test again so Mizuki will get me to steal the forbidden scroll again. Ba-chan wound up having to destroy it during the second invasion, so it was all lost. I want to make a copy of it with one of Gigi's jutsu. That sounds like a good plan. When you start using seals like Ero-sennin taught you, no one will notice some extras like that. Naruto nodded. Right, and if I seal it into my body with chakra-sensitive seals like I did some of my more important stuff, then no one even has to know the copies exist. That had been one of Naruto's more favorite ideas in his future days. Crafting a few storage seals on his body so they looked like normal tattoos kept suspicion away from them, and no one had ever figured out what they were. Not even Akatsuki and their information specialist. What about team placements? Hinata tilted her head back and kissed Naruto on the curve of his chin, causing him to smile and kiss her on the forehead. I can make sure we're on the same team. The old man owes me one, and I can call him on this. I just can't guarantee who the third member or our sensei will be. Hinata grabbed Naruto's arms and wrapped them around her chest and hugged him to her. What about the invasion or Sasuke's defection and Gaara and the Akatsuki and... We'll just have to get stronger and take everything as we can. We can't do anything about the invasion or Akatsuki as we are right now. And alerting anyone will cause trouble like we can't even hope to get out of. He could feel Hinata shudder in his arms. They both knew that their explanations that nothing physical changed would be heeded and they'd eventually end up being tested if they could prove their story, which they'd have to do to be taken seriously, and then they'd end up probably getting tortured for information on Jutsu and Konoha's enemies' movements and alignments. These were just some of the things they could think of. Neither of them had spent time as interrogators and were worried they were looking on the bright side of what may happen. We should spend our time training together. At this point in time, I was still introverted and you were she said, smiling at him. We'll say I helped you with your chakra control, you helped me with confidence, and we're a training partner for Juken. We can't do anything too strong until after we've made our teams. Naruto nodded, agreeing with all of it. True, but we can get much better after that, and just say we were holding back until we made Genin, he said. You mean like you were doing until Chunin? Naruto nodded and chuckled, amused by the comparison. Well, better than that. I was smarter than I let on, but my skills were really as bad as they seemed. I was just oblivious to it. Hinata got up and turned to face him and sat back in his lap again, her legs on either side of him before leaning in and kissing him deeply. After a few moments, she kissed down his jawline and then hugged him tightly. Well, now you have the knowledge and the skills. We'll just have to build up our bodies. Naruto frowned as he realized several things that had seemed off during the day. Now that you mention it, I don't remember my body being this developed the first time around. I was always wiry, but my muscles are far more developed. More like when I got back from my training with Erosenin. Hinata cocked her head to the side and thought for a moment before putting her hands underneath of his shirt and running her hands over his chest and abs, enjoying the familiar feel of the ridges and twinging as she hit spots she knew to be ticklish. You're right. This is like your body when you returned, she said with a smile, causing Naruto to smirk. Saucy little minx, aren't you? Hinata laughed and nibbled his neck. Damn right, Naruto-kun, she said. Do you think it's the changes Kyuubi talked about? I'm not sure, he said, frowning. I thought we were supposed to get ears, tails and all that other stuff, but I don't see much different yet aside from this. We should talk to her now and see what she has to say. Naruto nodded and simply closed his eyes to concentrate since he already had physical contact with Hinata. Almost immediately, they found themselves within the dank sewer-like halls within Naruto's mind. She isn't going to be happy about this. Hinata giggled and pulled him along. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. We can change it to how you had it later. True, he admitted, but we were only able to make the changes after the seal weakened and was malleable, and Naruto stopped short as he walked into the room that traditionally held the Kyuubi within her barred cage with Hinata right beside him, just as shocked. Instead of a mountain of a fox within an even larger cage, they found the Kyuubi in her human form, sitting on a bed in what looked like a normal bedroom and looking extremely bored. Even her human form that she had changed since the time they'd last seen her. Her red hair was longer than her shoulders as it was and now hung to her waist, and her actual body was less beast-like in muscle definition and posture, and now appeared to be truly human, save for the features she said they would soon have. The only thing that showed this wasn't an everyday scene in any home in Konoha was the glowing choker around her neck with the Uzumaki spiral centered at the front of her throat. So, she began. Do you want the good news or the bad news first? Kyuubi? What happened? Instead of answering right away, Kyuubi motioned with her hand to a small couch and the two sat, not exactly comfortable with a Kyuubi that seemed to be as free as she was in the future without the binding of the demonic artifact necklace that had been made for them. Well, there's good news and bad. So I'll start with the obvious. She situated herself on the bed so she was laying on her side, supporting herself with her arm. I'm not actually sure how it happened, but you two got off very lucky. That necklace you guys had that allowed you to control my power was tied directly to me and, as such, came back with us. So you still can't use any of your power without Hinata's permission? Naruto asked. That sounded like a good deal. That just meant they were that much better off this early in the beginning. However, Kyuubi grimaced and positively apoplectic and growled at him, making him wonder. No. As much as I would prefer that to my current circumstance, there was no control seal tied directly into either of you. That means that the seal acted on its own. What do you mean? Hinata asked. Are you okay? Kyuubi looked at Hinata and simply blinked. The girl's caring nature always threw her for a loop. Sometimes she was uncaring towards her, and sometimes she was like a mother hen, this being one of the latter. It depends on what you consider okay, I'm afraid. As of the moment we went back in time, she blushed and looked down, not event wanting to say it. It was just too horrible to have actually happened to someone of her caliber. Damn it, Kyuubi. Just tell us everything you're trying to hide already. Naruto yelled, getting fed up with having to wait for answers. However, when the woman in front of him yelped in severe pain and jerked violently, he began to wonder if maybe he should have allowed her to go at her own speed. Ah! I'm your slave now! She yelled out in pain, which stopped it suddenly. The seal reacted in the only way that would allow it to maintain its usual functions without the control seal that Hinata always wore. As such, it bound me to hers, and your own, life forces. Now that we've returned, I'm bound to the both of you. Both Hinata and Naruto stared in wide-eyed shock. The strongest demon in existence was now completely and totally their slave. Quite mortal. I can feel the seal and its effects. She stopped and scrunched up her face, trying to figure out how to explain it. Can feel what I am supposed to do. I feel compelled to do your bidding and to please you. She shook her head furiously, getting rid of the thoughts that flew through her head. Believe me when I tell you that I would have had to have thought long and hard between this and non-existence had I known the affects it would have had. Naruto and Hinata looked at each other before Naruto turned his attention back to the red-haired woman in front of him. So, you have to do anything we tell you, no matter what? Kyuu grimaced, but nodded. Yes, so long as it is within my ability to do it. I cannot, however, knowingly attack either of you or those you command me not to, or those who are allied to you two specifically. Well, that's Hinata wasn't sure exactly what it was at this point. She'd never been happy with the caged bird seal because it was a milder form of the current situation, but this was complete and total domination. A part of her held no reservations of having a demon under control like this, while the larger part of her felt it was a crime against life. Okay, Naruto said, breaking the uncomfortable silence. We'll deal with that later. I'm not really sure how we can do that, exactly, but we'll just have to think on it. What about my body? And what about the tails and nails and ears and all that other random stuff you told us about? Why haven't we gotten those yet? Kyuu sighed. This was going to be a long explanation if the boy hadn't become as smart as he seemed to be in the future. Alright. I'll give you the long version and hope it's clear. Basically, when we went back, you had to merge slightly with me, which meant my power. Because I'm a fox, and my power is of myself, it is genetically predisposed to be fox-like. There may not be any physical attribute to it in here while I'm within you, but it was created of my physical fox body and my fox mind. With me so far? Naruto and Hinata nodded, actually understanding so far. Basically, humans had chakra that they had because they were humans and demons had demon chakra. And since so many demons were different, that would explain why it was different colors and felt different. Good. Now, when we merged slightly so I could take you back with me and not start the same history we had before all over again, my chakra changed your own, but made you a little foxy, I suppose. Basically, that means that you have your normal human bodies and thoughts that you started with, and added a little fox into the mix. What does that actually mean? Naruto interrupted. Are we turning into foxes or what? No, the Kyuu sighed again, you are not turning into foxes. At least not fully. You see, when we merged to allow you to come back, you each had some of my chakra put into yours. Well, a lot is more accurate. Because of that, once you entered your previous bodies, that merger began to slowly change your physical forms to match your Hanyu forms you will be getting. Basically, the regeneration you, Naruto, already had, is fixing you to what it believes you should be. And now, Hinata is the same. It's just happening in Naruto a little faster because I'm inside of him, and there's that much more of my own chakra. So, you're saying we could wake up one day and simply have tails and ears and such? Yes. But tails and ears will be among the last things to come about. Well, in a way. Naruto narrowed his eyes as Kyuu cringed. What do you mean in a way, Kyuu? Well, I'm inside of you and I can control the transformation. But I cannot do anything for Hinata without being in her to do so. So where I can make certain things change at a time, with Hinata's happening all at once when they start. What? Kyuu cringed, hoping even stronger than she had since they entered that he didn't accidentally give her an order that meant her life. Well, I can alter the transformation as needed because I've got a direct link inside of you, but I don't with her. Naruto and Hinata sat against each other on the couch in silence for several minutes before the Kyuu offered another option. But I may be able to keep it safe for her and you both. Naruto eyed her suspiciously, causing her to fidget restlessly. There is a way to break a seal into multiple parts even after its creation. We can do that with the Shikifuen seal, and I will be able to be there for both of you to control the changes, and my power can be drawn by either of you. But I thought you said we couldn't use your power anymore, Hinata said, causing the Kyuu to nod her head. You can't. Not like Naruto did in your past. But I can heal you both even faster than your increased regeneration. This will also allow me to come out on my own and offer a mental link like what Naruto shares with me now with you, Hinata. Both Naruto and Hinata could see the benefits of such a link between them. If nothing else, that would have made it worth it. How can we be sure that you are really bound by what we say? I mean, if we do that and you can come out at will, then what's to keep you from hurting anyone? Hinata asked. Unfortunately, there was no way for them to know for sure. They could try to order the Kyuu to do something, but if she was looking for an out so they would allow her this to escape, then she'd simply do it. However, talking it over, they found that everything was as they were told. At least in regards to what they could confirm. I think, Hinata paused and bit her lower lip while turning to Naruto, that we should do it, Naruto-kun. So far, I have not yet seen a reason not to believe in her. Naruto sat quietly for several minutes before finally nodding. Alright. Just to be sure it's been said, just in case. Kyuu. You may not do anything to bring harm to myself or Hinata except what may be necessary for this to work. You may not harm anyone within Konoha, and if you bring about Hinata's death, you must kill yourself immediately. Kyuubi's eyes widened, but she shook her head and thought through the commands quickly. I see no problems with those commands. We shouldn't be attacked as there won't be any chakra transference between the two of you, and this isn't dangerous unless you are worse at seals than I think you to be. We should have no problems, and it should only take a few minutes after finishing the seals to have it all completed, but it may knock Hinata unconscious for a few hours. And by doing this, and by turning into Hanyu, your reserves will grow quickly, so you'll want to constantly be doing chakra control exercises. Naruto nodded and turned to Hinata. Think we should do it tomorrow morning? As early as possible? Hinata nodded. I'll be by about 6 or earlier. I can't stay at the Hyuga compound too late, or I'll get pulled into getting something done. But if worse comes to worse, I can probably offer a test of the Kaiten and explain that you helped me with the power aspect while I taught you chakra control. I doubt it will come to that, however, she said. She then turned to the Kyuu. How long should I be out, do you think? Shrugging, the Kyuu responded. No more than probably 3 hours and as few as just a few minutes. It really depends on how well you take to it. Being receptive to what's happening, it will reduce the time. But writing the seals will take about an hour to be sure we don't mess any of them up, and it will have to cover most of your body. Hinata waved off the need of nudity. I have no problems getting naked in front of Naruto-kun for this, she said, inwardly smirking at Naruto's blushing smile. I trust him not to do anything naughty with my unconscious, naked body. She giggled when she heard Naruto gulp, amused that she could get a reaction out of him. But then she realized this wasn't exactly a good time for it, but she hadn't thought of it before then, and she was teasing him more than even before they went back. Kyuu, I'd been teasing Naruto-kun more today than I did before we came back. Does that have to do with the changes we're going through? Kyuu nodded. Yes. You will be almost entirely who you were before we came back, but you were given slightly more, I'm not sure how to say it, baser or maybe animalistic ideas and tendencies. Basically you are who you were, but now you have fewer inhibitions towards certain aspects of your minds because it's trying to mix partly with the mind of a fox, say 10%, and your mind, by the rest of the 90%. There will be some things that you will allow to change so you remain as close to the same as you can. Such as what, exactly? What do you think is most likely for us to change? Naruto asked. Well, apparently your relationship and similar things like that, it would seem. You're probably going to be highly affectionate because humans don't have a single period of time that they mate like we do. So instead of being purely about taking each other physically and constantly at a single point, you will instead be affectionate always. That makes sense, actually, Hinata agreed. So this is basically something that keeps me from wanting to, she looked at Naruto and blushed, have sex constantly with him? Kyuu made a somewhat gesture with her hand before responding. Almost exactly right. You may still want to have sex, but you won't physically need to or be controlled by it. You will be in full control over your emotions at all times, except for loving gestures like marking each other, or hugging to you humans, kissing and such. Then you'll probably enjoy battle more. Not killing itself, Kyuu rushed to assure them as they both opened their mouths to voice their disapproval, but you will enjoy the fight. You'll enjoy the hunt and such, but you will not want to go about simply for the sake of killing. Not unless you were predisposed to do that already. And you'll probably enjoy meat much better and not care as much for vegetables. Naruto and Hinata sat for only a few moments before Naruto shrugged. It doesn't seem all that bad to me so far. I've always enjoyed fighting my enemies and showing my strength, but I didn't care to just get into a fight just to fight. I wasn't much for fighting, but I enjoy showing my strength, Hinata amended for herself while Kyuu nodded with a smile. Exactly. Demons, in general, love to show their strength. Usually it's to themselves with killing, she said somewhat sheepishly, but your own personalities will keep that from happening, guaranteed. The other two nodded to show their agreement to the plan. Really, if they wanted to keep things safe and without the entirety of Konoha finding out that something drastic happened, it had to be done. What about this mental link thing? Naruto asked. How will that work? Well, I'm not totally sure. I believe it will be like you and I share. We can speak and get a general idea of what the other is feeling, but it may be weaker or stronger. I just don't truly know. I've never worked with anything like this before. While disappointed, both decided to move on and see what else they could figure out before they had to leave. Okay, Naruto began. We'll slowly be turning into Hanyu and you can control it, but we have to split the Shiki Fuin in order for you to make sure Hinata's transformation. By splitting the seal between us, we will have some kind of mental link that could be nothing, or give us some super awesome way to communicate to each other, and by going back in time, the control seal we had so your chakra wouldn't corrupt me while using it changed and made you mine and Hinata's slave. Is there anything we've missed? Kyuu shook her head, looking thoughtful. No. That seems to be everything. A summoning contract is simply an agreed-upon set of rules and method of actions allowed. With my situation in being forced into whatever you tell me to do, that substitutes any contract you and I could make together. Kyuu was certainly far from happy about her situation, and that was obvious to both Naruto and Hinata. So we can both use the same summoning seals I used for Gamabunta and the other toads? Yes. You just need to think of me instead of the toad you want. Naruto and Hinata nodded. Hinata was happy Naruto had allowed her to sign the summoning contract not long after the war got worse. It kept her from having to learn it all over again. Alright. So have we got anything else we need to talk about right now? Kyuu began to shake her head until she saw Hinata's eyes light up and raise her hand slightly. Actually, I just want to confirm, she said looking at the Kyuu. I won't get to a point where I physically need to have sex and, like I've seen of some animals, just go to any man, and Kyuu instantly shook her head and interrupted Hinata. No. No. You'll be gaining fox-like attributes in that regard. While you would normally be like that as a full demon, where you need the physical mating bit, this is not like that. You may feel extremely promiscuous, but Naruto will be the only male you have any interest in whatsoever. Foxes aren't like wolves, who mate for life, but the alpha male gets his choice of the females and the females are fully faithful, even to the point of getting downright vicious towards males who are too stupid to try and draw the female's attentions or smell that she's been marked. Hinata scrunched up her face in thought. So I may get the urge to have sex with him, but I will never care to have another man? You simply won't have any interest in other males at all. Because of your human side, you can flirt with a man, she smartly ignored Naruto's growling, as your job as a ninja may require, but you will never allow a man to touch you in a manner you reserve for Naruto. Hinata nodded, understanding. I can live with that. Naruto and Hinata awoke back in his apartment, and still facing each other on the couch, Hinata still in his lap, straddling him as they were before they entered his mind. Looking at the alarm clock in his room through the door, Naruto saw it was still before noon. Well, that was quick. Want to go get lunch? Hinata nodded with a beautiful smile. Very much so. They exited his apartment, and began their trek to Ichiraku Ramen. We should start training tomorrow if I wake up early enough from the sealed transfer, and feel okay. Naruto nodded and watched his feet as he walked in thought. Yeah. I'm still trying to get used to being a midget again. Hinata giggled and latched onto his arm. Well, your new diet will work on that and the competent exercise will fix that. Naruto sighed as he realized she was going to control what he ate again. She did it the last time around, too. It was just as horrible then. Yes, dear. Hinata giggled again, really enjoying herself. Oh, make. I don't understand, Ino-chan, Naruto said, finally getting fed up with Ino's fangirl ramblings of the last Uchiha. You and all of the other girls in Sasuke's fan club are so dead set on trying to get the team to notice and go out with you, but you don't even step back to see exactly what you're getting into. Ino, who'd been shocked out of her reverie, suddenly turned livid. Naruto baka. How can you say that? He's the smartest boy in the school, is the most handsome, is the lone survivor of the Uchiha massacre, and, she blushed and giggled perversely, he has to revive his entire clan. She let out a squeal as she ran in place quickly, her arms pulled in tightly. Naruto only scoffed and rolled his eyes, gaining her attention again. He'd seen the last Uchiha in the showers before. He'd have a lot of work cut out for him to revive anything. Trust me, you're not missing anything there, he snorted. Though I sometimes wonder if he is. Ino was simply outraged. Baka! You can't say such things about Sasuke-kun. Naruto simply quirked an eyebrow at her. Oh? I tell you what. If Hinata-chan and I offer to keep watch over your body, why don't you take control over him and take him to use the restroom and check? We won't tell anyone about it, and you'll have the singular ability, of all the girls in Konoha, to say that you've seen his little Uchiha up close and personal. Why you'll watch over my body, she asked quietly, and Hinata too? Naruto nodded as he motioned for Hinata to come over and explain things to her. Hinata looked at the girl as if she were about to do something that she shouldn't have to experience, as she promised to make sure her body would remain safe. Biting her lower lip, Ino finally nodded and silently slid in between Naruto and Hinata and lined Sasuke up in her sights before launching her spirit at the dark-haired Avenger, who barely flinched as Ino oriented herself in his body. Quickly looking around to make sure she had control, Ino, now Sasuke, raised her hand to be excused to the restroom and quickly left. Naruto-kun, Hinata whispered, should we really have let her find out like that? I mean, even if that wasn't wrong, it is an invasion of privacy for Sasuke. Naruto smiled and shook his head. Yes, it may not exactly be the morally correct thing to do, but it should keep her from chasing after the team and allow her to focus on truly being a kunoichi, which may save her life later on down the road. Hinata seemed to think about it for only a moment before nodding. You're right, I suppose? I just wish whatever she'd have wished was lost as a terrified scream tore through the academy. There was some very loud thumping before Sasuke, with Ino in control, tore up to Irika and grabbed the man by the collar of his shirt and jerked him down to eye level. What the hell is this? Sasuke asked the confused and terrified Chunin teacher. I thought all Uchiha were supposed to be hung like gods. But this dash. Deciding that Irika really needed to understand, Sasuke, still with Ino at the controls, flung down the pants and pointed at it accusingly. What happened to all the stories? It was a dark day for Uchiha Sasuke, as he lost all of his fangirls and fanboys within Konohagakure and had no clue why he went into class one day, top of the food chain, only to come back the next with a status in the village that was nearly as bad as the village pariahs. Story. Naruto could feel a warm hand sliding up his thigh, his side, and then finally down his jaw before soft lips touched his own, bringing him fully into the realm of the waking. Blinking, he could see the smiling face of Hinata looking down at him from her place beside him in the bed. Hey, Hina, he mumbled over a yawn. When'd you get here? Just a few minutes ago. Come on, she said, ripping the blankets off of him, time to get out of bed. We've got a seal to change. As she pulled the blankets, she inadvertently made him roll over and off the bed to the floor with a grunt of pain. Oops. I'm so getting you back for that, he said from his place on the floor. Later, Naruto. For now, go ahead and take a shower to wake yourself up and then we'll take care of the seal. After that, we can talk about naughty little punishments, she finished with a giggle before going to the living room to move things to the side. Before she left the bedroom, she turned her head to face him. Oh, and Naruto? Hurry up. I don't think I'll be able to get out of these clothes alone. With a bright smile, she left a wide-eyed, gaping Naruto to fumble his way to the bathroom. Damn fox sending us back when my damned hormones are kicking in. He spent the next several minutes in an ice-cold shower, being watched by the Byakugan user the entire time. Naruto kept his hand as steady as possible as he drew a series of caricatures over Hinata's bare stomach and chest. Oh, how he was wishing for another cold shower. The fact that Hinata herself was ticklish and holding in her laughter as best as possible, making her breathe deeply and shake in barely controlled fits of giggles, making two very impressive objects jiggle, distracting him each time. Keep your focus, Naruto. Once this is done, you can talk with her about going down that route. The Kyuubi was so high-strung with the near screw-ups from Naruto's distractions that could bring everything to ruin. All because he couldn't keep his damned eyes to himself. Naruto inked several kanji and symbols into a circle just above her left breast and around her heart before making a series of directional control seals down to just above her belly button and crafted a seal exactly as Kyuubi told him. This particular one was a demonic containment seal that was especially used for such purposes as this, containing a portion of a high-volume chakra entity. The details of the seal itself were far more intricate than even his own Shiki Fuin, but required far fewer symbols, since he had a pool of demonic characters that were more specific to his current needs. Almost done, Tenshi-chan. Hinata giggled quietly as he raised the brush from her belly, each stroke tickling her mercilessly. We'll have to do this again sometime, Naruto-kun. She giggled again, enjoying how Naruto's eyes seemed to gravitate towards her chest while her own looked at his erection, thanking the demon within him that seals had to be placed upon his own body as well. He gave a loopy smile until Kyuubi interrupted his staring, again. Enough for now, Gur. Take that kunai and cut straight down the Shiki Fuin and draw the final seal inside the circle over her belly in the blood. It doesn't have to be deep. Naruto did as told, agreeing with Hinata that there wasn't much else that could be done otherwise than to trust the fox vixen. Once done, he pulled back and placed bloodied fingertips in the center of the seal he just drew in blood and the one over her heart, and began to channel chakra. As Kyuubi's chakra leaked out of the changing seal on his stomach, several containment seals drawn around them on the floor to preempt this very problem in case Naruto wasn't perfect on the seal activated and blocked the demonic chakra from escaping so no one would be able to sense the release of a massive amount of energy, and contain it to be absorbed by one of the two within its confines. Luckily, a web of chakra formed around the escaping chakra in the shape of a tube and directed the fox's chakra where it belonged. Her hands grew slightly and her fingernails lengthened and thickened. Her body rippled and he could see her body grow slightly and her muscles contracted until she had a series of muscles similar to his own and finally, 4 tails grew from under her, their color the same as her hair. Though unable to see himself, he could feel similar changes to himself. After feeling the last of the chakra flow between the two of them stop, both of them slumped to the ground, Naruto laying beside Hinata with an arm draped over her. His body twitched violently several times before he was able to gain control over his body again. Once he did, he slowly raised himself up and checked Hinata, seeing she was unconscious. Oh, sweet Kami, that hurt his attention was drawn to Hinata as her foxy features began to recede and made her look normal again, aside from the height change and muscle mass increase. The hell? Kyuu, what's going on? I told you, she said quietly and slowly, obviously worn out for some reason, you're Hanyu and will be able to hide your features. That means you have your human forms and your half-demon forms and then, finally, full demon forms since I'm with you both. You will be able to change between them. She changed back to her human form because she unconsciously knows that form better. So, she's okay? He asked worriedly. Naruto picked up Hinata from the floor and carried her to his bedroom and laid her on the bed, taking the spot next to her and covering them both up. What about me? Why am I not unconscious and going through those changes? And I thought she was already going through those mental changes. Kyuu let out a yawn before answering, barely able to remain awake from being split between the two of them. It was, but that was more of a small change for where she wanted it, so to speak. You mean she wanted to tease me more and let me see her naked and such? Kyuu chuckled. Most definitely. But I thought she wanted to wait. Naruto was completely confused. They had talked about doing things together, and she had wanted to wait until they got married to do anything naughty. He had suddenly realized that she liked him and things progressed rather quickly from that point, and he knew she didn't want to rush into anything to be sure she wasn't a fling on the side and he respected that. Naruto knew she didn't believe that he was that type of guy, but insecurities abound in women who were already very insecure. Yes, she wanted to wait, but she wanted you for so long that it was the one thing she wanted to change about herself at the time. You would have to speak with her for anything more specific. And you are not unconscious because you are far more used to the demonic spirit, and the changes will be very minor since the mental aspects happened with us throughout your life. Naruto hugged Hinata closer to him when she let out a small whimper and shivered, kissing her bare shoulder and tightening the blankets around them. Thank you, Kyuu. You sound tired also, so go ahead and take a nap if you want. I'll keep an eye on her. Both Naruto and Kyuu yawned and began to drift off. Thank you, master. Neither noticed her tired response as they both fell asleep. Are you serious? Sakura and Ino were currently attempting to track Sasuke on his jog. They lost him almost as soon as they first found him when they noticed each other, but now, they were sitting in a tree, waiting for him to come back and Ino was dishing out her new information. Completely. She had Naruto wrapped around her pinky. Sakura scoffed and took a quick look for Sasuke. I still don't believe he has a better body than Sasuke-kun. Ino smiled and looked in the opposite direction than Sakura. Believe it, Sakura. I helped them pick out a new wardrobe and they had him down to his boxers and he is way more developed than Sasuke-kun. Not only that, but Hinata gave me a wicked idea, she said with a smile and conspiratorial tone of voice, instantly catching Sakura's attention. Oh? Like what? Both turned to face each other, missing as Sasuke walked into his house after 2 laps around the training ground. She mentioned how her Byakugan lets her see all around and through other things, such as clothes. She smiled brightly as she saw Sakura's eyes widened and a blush painted her cheeks. You mean, she's seen Sasuke-kun? She trailed off, embarrassed to even say it. She says she did, but she said it was smaller than my index finger. Sakura's face turned red in a righteous fury as she realized what Ino was saying. That little bint. What makes her think we'll believe? Sakura. I asked the same thing and she actually explained it in a way that I would actually believe. She doesn't care for Sasuke-kun in any way and has no competition for Naruto, so she has no reason to lie and. But she said he's small and. Yes, she interrupted the pink-haired girl, she did. But she also mentioned a way for me to prove it without getting caught, and if you help, we can both see it. Sakura's wrath was warring with her own inner pervert, and her inner pervert was winning. Like what? Ino blushed and looked around quickly. Well, my family's techniques allow us to take control over other people without them knowing what happens while we're in control. I figured that, if you distract him with something or other, I can take him over and we can get a few pictures for ourselves and no one ever has to know. Both sat in silence for a few minutes, thinking the whole thing through until Sakura's inner pervert reared its ugly head again. So how big did she say Naruto was in comparison, and can we get blackmail on him by doing the same thing? Ino blushed furiously. She said Naruto was twice as big as any other boys in our class and based on the way his boxers were filled out, I'm willing to believe her. She ignored Sakura's wide-eyed and shocked expression. And Naruto bought me a dress for helping him out, so I won't blackmail him. He's actually a pretty decent guy, really. Naruto was on the edge of consciousness with an incredible feeling of soft, fluttery touches over his body, going down his chest and back up to his neck, before something firm and wet stroked his collarbone and then nibbled. Opening his eyes, he smiled as he saw the beaming face of Hinata smiling down at him. Wakey, wakey, Naruto-kun, she purred into his ear. Hinata-chan? What are you doing? While Naruto was enjoying what was happening, he knew Hinata may not be in her right mind at the moment. His fears eased when she laid down next to him, pressing the length of her body up against his. I just thought it would be a pleasant way to wake up, that's all Naruto-kun, she said, tracing patterns over his chest. I feel wonderful. My chakra capacity seems to be about 3 times what it was before the transfer, and just over a quarter of what I had before we came back. She got up excitedly and spun around, showing him her nude body, not realizing the reaction it was causing to his body. My strength seems to be higher and I've got a lot more definition, too. She turned and smiled at him before her eyes fell from his gaping face to the large erection under the covers. She giggled as she realized what she was doing and got back under the covers and hugged him. So you don't feel any residual pain or anything, he asked, trying to get the image of her out of his mind. She was right. There was most certainly more definition. Nope, she chirped brightly. I feel incredible. My muscles feel a little tight like I haven't used them in a little while, but no pain. He nodded and hugged her tightly back to him. My reserves went up too, but I can't tell how much. It wasn't much compared to what I had before we came back, but if QB was right, my control should still be far better. Hinata let her body go limp against him with her face in the crook of his neck, breathing in his scent. We should start working on our taijutsu and other skills to see what we're currently capable of. We need to check out techniques, speed and accuracy. Naruto nodded gently so as not to hit her with his chin. We should probably take it easy for a day or two to make sure nothing bad happens because of this. Hinata shook her head. If anything is going to happen, it will happen when I exert myself, so we'll just start slow and work our way up. Naruto paused, thinking it over, before agreeing. Alright, slow it is then. But if I see something that doesn't look right, I'm taking you straight to the hospital. What time is it anyway? I can agree with that. Just don't get worried for nothing, and it's a few minutes after 9, so we can get a little bit of training in before lunch. She got out of bed and got dressed, enjoying watching Naruto squirm as he was forced to acknowledge his frustration. He tried to put his own clothes on to find that he couldn't do so while hard and wound up waiting nearly 20 minutes for it to go away. From there, they left to check their current abilities and then train in earnest. Hinata had found it easy to get back into her juken abilities. But like Naruto, she kept overestimating her reach and tried to strike at points that were further than she had available reach for. However, with an available and quick healing practice dummy called Naruto, she was easily able to get the hang of the change. With the change due to the seal alteration where she gained several inches, it wasn't quite as bad as it could have been. It was for that very reason, however, that Naruto made so sure to wake up at 5 in the morning. He didn't bother with a shower since his plans would make it pointless and, instead, put on his old orange clothes and ran out to Training Ground 4, where he knew his targets would be. Several minutes later, he walked into a clearing where 2 men were going through some rather extreme physical exercises. Naruto stood off to the side, but within Mato Guy's range of vision, waiting for him to invite him over. He didn't doubt the man's ability to notice him and was rewarded after a minute of waiting with Guy's hand motioning him forward. Ah. To what does the great Mato Guy owe the pleasure of your visit this fine morning? Lee, seeing the newcomer, hopped up and stood beside his sensei with a curious expression on his face. I am Uzumaki Naruto, student at the academy, he began, slipping into debriefing mode easily and unconsciously, his expression and tone serious. You are Mato Guy, #1 taijutsu specialist with no other equal in Konoha aside from your eternal rival Hatake Kakashi when he uses his implanted Sharingan eye, and your student, Rock Lee, genin of 1 year under your command in Team 9. No chakra ability that has been a hindrance only to those who do not know him, as he's increased his own taijutsu form and ability to become a respectable genin of Konohagakure that is usually underestimated, to his opponent's folly. Both Guy and Lee were shocked at the stranger's knowledge and curious where it was going. Then his expression turned into his usual foxy smile, throwing both for a loop. And I'd like to ask for training in taijutsu in exchange for becoming a sparring partner with Lee. Guy had been very curious, even becoming wary, of the boy in front of him. He knew who the boy was, even without his odd introduction. He had only ever heard bad things about the boy from those who already hated him and only good things from those who didn't. While he doubted anyone's ability to keep up with his Lee, this would be the one boy who stood the best chance considering his stamina and history outrunning pranked Anbu and Jounin. Lee. We have found another who wishes to fan his flames of youth. Yash. We shall teach him newfound limits. Naruto ignored the icy shiver at the base of his spine and waved a hand to catch their attention. So, is this a yes? Guy looked at Naruto and smiled in a way very different than his nice guy pose. This smile was a sadistic, evil thing that promised pain to come. Let's get you set up with some weights. Hinata put the onigiri and yakitori for both herself and Naruto into her bento box, already filled with some tea and dango, and then walked quickly to the front door of the complex to meet up with Naruto and go to the academy, but was interrupted as she was coming out of the kitchen by her father. Hinata. I would like to speak with you in my study, he said, turning and walking away expecting her to follow. Yes, father. With a grimace, Hinata did so, knowing she couldn't anger him. He was her clan head, after all. They walked in silence until they were in his study and sitting in front of each other. Hinata. We received reports from branch members and from Minichis who we use exclusively for our outfitting needs that you were seen in the company of Uzumaki Naruto and were behaving in a manner that was rather uncouth for a Hyuga, and out of character for yourself. I would like you to explain. Hinata nodded. Are we speaking as father and daughter, or clan head and Hyuga? Hayashi's eyes widened when Hinata asked such a ridiculous question. She hadn't even stuttered and was looking him in the eye. I'm afraid I don't understand. I am both of those things. Yes, but there are two ways to view yourself as clan head. This is going to tell me which you are more worried about. Your family or your clan. I still do not understand, Hinata. Our family is our clan. Why are you playing games? Hinata sighed and shook her head slightly, making Hayashi feel she was disappointed. If you do what is best for the family, you allow the clan to prosper for themselves. If you do what is best for the clan, it is our reputation and public view you care about. I am asking, father, if you are questioning me about these events because you are worried about me being with Naruto-kun or if you are worried what the public will think, she said forcefully, allowing a moment of silence for it to sink in before continuing. Are we speaking as father and daughter, or are we speaking as clan head and Hyuga? Hayashi was quiet for a moment as he realized what she was asking. Was he worried about her safety or the public's opinion of the Hyuga? He had a strong feeling that his answer would also either open or close new paths with his eldest daughter depending on what it was. So he decided to take a chance. Father and daughter. Hinata simply stared at him for a few moments, causing Hayashi to become nervous though he didn't show it, and finally nodded. All right. She smiled brightly at him, causing the knot in his stomach to loosen as he realized he probably answered correctly. I met up with Naruto-kun and Yamanaka Ino on Saturday and decided I was not going to let him keep those horrid orange jumpsuits, so I took him to get new clothes and equipment, since no one would sell him quality things for normal prices due to his tenant and… What do you know about that? He interrupted with a furious expression. Who told you? Hinata simply waved off his concern. Naruto-kun told me. He knew he could trust me. He wanted me to know what being close to him would mean if it was found out we've been spending time together, and why prices seem to be so high for the most horrible equipment, and why he's not allowed in most restaurants aside from Ichiraku Ramen. Hayashi was confused and appalled at the idea that the boy would be so careless with information about the kyuubi, or even that he knew. However, there was something far more sinister hinted at in that explanation. Something that scared him to the core. What do you mean by spending time together, exactly? Hinata's face erupted into an expression of confusion and replied in an overly innocent tone. Well, in 7 months, you're going to be a grandfather, she said as she watched him seem to sway and fall forward onto his desk. Giggling, she poked him with her finger. Perhaps that was cruel, but it was worth it. She spent the next several minutes trying to wake him up before finally getting frustrated and performing a minor Suiton jutsu to mist his face and hold it there, causing him to splutter and finally awaken. You what? Hinata giggled again and waved off his expression. I was joking, she said between giggling. We've been spending time together training. He can reopen his tenketsu, even if all of them are closed, and heals quickly. I taught him chakra control and he helped me with my confidence, and sparred with me without insulting me at every turn. In that environment, I've learned much. Exactly what have you learned? He asked, still very worried thanks to her earlier comment. While he was surprised that the boy could reopen his tenketsu, he assumed she meant only a single one or two. Much, she said simply. I would be willing to show you after genin placements. That is when we agreed to stop holding back and show what we are truly capable of. He's been doing that with his intelligence and abilities for years because people have hated him for fuzzy. Why would he do that? Hayashi could understand fooling everyone, but that he could have done it for so long and so well was almost frightening to think about. And if the boy had any dark thoughts about what to do with his abilities, they could all be in trouble. Would you want people to beat you constantly for doing well or even average simply because of who you are? Hinata shook her head as if saying no for him. It was self-preservation. Hayashi nodded, understanding where that sentiment was coming from. He'd long known about the animosity that the Uzumaki boy had gone through, but there wasn't anything he could do about it. He had to hold his clan over a single boy, and it was a needless hardship to bring into the family if they tried. How long have you been working with Uzumaki-san? Hinata tried to think up a viable time frame, but realized she couldn't think of anything valid enough that Naruto could agree with if questioned separately. I'm not really sure. We've been working together for a while. And that is why you no longer stutter in my presence? Hinata nodded. Pretty much. Hayashi was quiet a few moments while he took that in. If nothing else, the Uzumaki seemed to have brought out the heir within his eldest daughter. Very well. You may go, he said, knowing he'd have to think things over and determine where he, and by position, the Hyuga clan, stood on the issue. Hinata simply bowed her head slightly and left swiftly. She now had a few minutes more than needed to get to the academy, but she'd have to move quickly to make it in time regardless. She ran over the rooftops for extra speed and arrived with 10 minutes to spare, faster than she expected. She sat down in her usual seat in the back of the class and watched the students as they milled about until a worn-out and freshly showered Naruto in his new clothes almost fell into the seat beside her and laid his head on the table. "Morning, Tenchi-chan," he mumbled. Hinata frowned and noticed his muscles were twitching slightly, showing major recent use. "Good morning, Naruto-kun. Are you alright?" "Yeah. I decided to try and get my body back up to snuff and met up with Guy-sensei and Lee." He groaned lightly for added effect. "Slave drivers, the both of them. They gave me 50 pounds for each leg and 30 for both arms, and then had me go through their crazy-ass regimen." Hinata giggled as he pretended to stare off into the distance, and then grabbed his arm and put it around her waist, enjoying how the weight around his wrist caused his arm to squeeze her lightly, and then snuggled into his shoulder. "You knew very well what their training was like, Naruto-kun. You have no one to blame but yourself," she said primly. "Yeah, but did he have to give me both sets of weights that Niji and Tenten refused to wear? I heard all over," he lightly complained, causing Hinata to smile even brighter. "Maybe later I'll kiss your aois and make them all better," she suggested, getting a gulp from the wide-eyed blonde. He coughed, to clear his throat before speaking. "Remind me to make sure to piss off Sakura so she'll hurt a fun area first." With a laugh, Hinata smacked him hard on the shoulder, causing an over-exaggerated groan from Naruto. Can't blame a guy for trying. Ignoring him, Hinata settled back into his side and sighed in contentment. "Were you able to get a decent workout at least?" Naruto nodded even though she couldn't see it as the first bell rang to let the students know classes were about to start. "Yeah. Guy-sensei is weird as all hell, but he's a damn genius at his stuff. He noticed the corrections I kept trying to do were too much for my body size. He was really impressed, though he could tell I don't have the forms memorized with my body yet." Hinata gave an acknowledging sound in her throat, and they watched as the last of the students came rushing in. "Get your hands off of Hinata!" Naruto and Hinata both turned to the voice behind them to see Inuzuka Kiba and his puppy Akamaru on top of his head looking at Naruto with fury written across his face before it turned to shock as he noticed Naruto's hair and whiskered face. "Got a problem, dog boy?" Naruto asked, annoyed with the Inuzuka already. Unnoticed by Naruto or Kiba, several of the students began paying attention. "Naruto? What the hell are you doing?" Naruto frowned in confusion. "Sitting here?" Kiba's face morphed into fury again as he growled at Naruto, Akamaru yapping to show support for his master. "I mean with your arm around Hinata," he growled out. Naruto turned to Hinata and winked before looking back at Kiba. "Well, I figured I'd keep my arm around her so she was in my arms, and then I'd take her back to my place and ravish her until she screamed my name over and over again." The entire class, sans Naruto and Hinata, simply stared in open-mouthed shock until Hinata leaned in and kissed his cheek. "He's kidding, Kiba," she said to placate the red-faced boy. "I put his arm around me because this is more comfortable." The joke was just a plus. Hinata placed Naruto's arm back around her as the bell rang and Iruka walked into class. "Alright, you guys. Sit down. We're taking roll and then we'll be working on review for 3 weeks, leaving the final one for the final graduation exam. Welcome to Genin Hell." Iruka smiled as he saw several of the Genin hopefuls gulp in fear. This one speech made the rest of the year worth it. 3.5 weeks later, Naruto was laying on the ground, panting heavily as he finished up another grueling training session with Guy and Lee. Tiredly, he rolled his head to the side and looked at Lee, who was bouncing lightly on his feet and throwing punches into the air. "Damn that bastard! How the hell he can beat me in stamina, I don't even want to know," he thought, glaring at the green-clad youth. "You have done very well today, Naruto. Your flames of youth truly burn brightly within you." Guy struck a nice guy pose and allowed his teeth to ping for what had to be the 50th time that day. "You can leave now, and that should leave you with an hour to make it to your classes today." Naruto slowly got up and nodded to the large jounin in front of him. "Thank you, Guy-sensei. You've done very well and advanced very quickly with your forms. I was surprised to hear you were among the lower tier of taijutsu users in your class, but have no doubt of your other abilities. Your flames of youth shall not extinguish so prematurely." Naruto chuckled and decided to hint to the jounin that there was method to his madness. He just couldn't bear the man thinking so little of him, even if he was trying to sugarcoat his disappointment. Besides, tonight was the event he'd been waiting for. "I believe you will understand tonight or tomorrow, Guy-sensei. I would not do so poorly after receiving such superb instruction." Naruto nearly screamed as Lee seemed to come out of nowhere and stood in front of him in a strange pose with fire in his eyes. "YOSH. Guy-sensei's teaching is greater than any others." "Lee. Guy-sensei." Before the two even got into a full-scale man-hug, Naruto had taken off like a bat out of hell. They were good guys, they were talented guys, and they were creepy as all hell. Naruto rushed back to his apartment to get a shower and change from his orange clothes into the ones Hinata and Ino had picked out for him. Hinata enjoyed them, and rather didn't enjoy the orange jumpsuit, so he did what any sane man would do: obey his girlfriend and stay as far away from her bad side as you can. He showered quickly and exited the bathroom with the towel around his head when he heard a familiar giggle come from his living room. Looking at the source, he found Hinata with her Byakugan still active and looking directly at him with a blush and smile on her face. "See something you like, Hinata-chan?" he asked, not even bothering to cover himself up as he walked to his bedroom to get dressed. They had teased each other mercilessly during their time back, but didn't normally get naked in front of each other since it could lead to more than they wanted to do quite yet. Naruto had only found out a few days previously that Hinata seemed to try and make it to his apartment in time to peek on him every day. After getting dressed, he walked over to where she was sitting on the couch, politely ignoring the blush and remnants of her bloody nose, and picked her up and sat her in his lap after sitting. "So, Maero Tenchi," he said with a grin, getting a smack on the shoulder, "what do you think?" They have had this conversation several times in the past weeks. It was a running discussion over what to change and what not to. Until this particular night, they tried to make everything happen as it had previously aside from simple cosmetic changes, such as Naruto's outfit and diet and the two of them training together. "Well, things are the same so far. I think that your plan with the scroll is a good one. We just have to make the exchange quickly." Naruto nodded. "Okay. So we go with the plan and I'll make the old man put us on the same team." With Kurenai-sensei, Hinata amended. "She would be the best sensei for our needs." "Alright, Tenchi-chan," Naruto said before nibbling on Hinata's neck and sliding his hand very lightly over her stomach and up the front of her jacket, making her take a deep breath as she tilted her head back as he kissed the front of her neck and down slightly. She let out a moan as he cupped her breast and kissed her solidly on the mouth, licking her lips gently before he released her and slid himself out from under her with a grin. "We should head to the academy now." Hinata glared at the smiling blonde in front of her, her face still flushed from the contact. "You're dead, Uzumaki." Laughing, he took off with Hinata right on his heels. "Alright, Naruto. You have to make 3 viable and battle-ready bunshin in order to become a genin. You may proceed," Irika, Naruto's latest sensei in the academy, said. Naruto nodded and performed the seals necessary, putting as much chakra as he could into the jutsu. Bunshin no jutsu. Naruto was obscured by a sudden burst of smoke that cleared rapidly, showing 3 clones that looked to have already died. Naruto's shoulders slumped as Irika shook his head. "I'm sorry, Naruto. But you fail." Mizuki, who was sitting right next to Irika, smiled and turned to Irika. "Couldn't we possibly pass him just this once? I mean, it's his last chance to become a genin, and he did make 3 bunshin." Irika shook his head and pointed at the 3 dead Narutos on the ground as they poofed away into a cloud of smoke. "Those wouldn't fool even the most rookie of enemy ninja. I cannot, in good conscience, send him out just to die. I'm sorry, Naruto. But you fail." Naruto turned and fled from the room, pausing only to glance at Hinata as he ran to show things were happening as expected. Just as before, Naruto sat silently on a swing in the shade of a large tree in the yard of the academy. It had been one of his favorite places to sit and think, or just simply be alone on the academy grounds. Right now, however, he sat there, watching as all of the students who'd taken the exam and passed. Every single one of them except for him. The voices were just as he remembered. "That's my boy. Tonight, Mom's making your favorite for dinner. We're both really proud of you. Look, Mom. I'm going to be as strong as Dad now. You've made your family proud today, son. We're going to take you and your sister out to whatever restaurant you want. Tonight is all about you." He listened as several families joined in the happiness of his peers' achievements. He couldn't help but to remember his first time around, thinking about his own parents, and the usual questions of where they were, if they were even alive, if they had left him because of Kyuubi, or if he'd simply been lost from them somehow. He now knew what had happened to them, but the first time through this life, he was lost. He could also hear the other voices. The ones who talked about him. The voices that he couldn't block with his usual mask as he sat there, completely enveloped in sorrow. He merely kept his eyes closed, letting the words wash over him and waiting for Mizuki to show up. "Look over there. It's him. They say he's the only one who didn't pass. Yeah, it's a good thing, too. They should never have let him join the academy, that damn. Sure. It's forbidden to talk about." He was about to get up and leave to find Mizuki on his own when he heard soft footsteps coming up beside him. Naruto turned to look and saw Mizuki standing there, but failed to see the lavender-eyed girl who stood watching him from a distance, even though he knew she was there. "You know, Naruto, Irika didn't fail you because he hates you. He did it because he cares about you." What do you mean, Mizuki-sensei? Naruto almost wanted to kill the traitor there, and then but knew it would be better to do it later. Iruka was a lot like you as a child. He acted up in class, and didn't do very well because he wanted attention. He, too, was an orphan because the Kyuubi killed his family when it attacked. He sees a lot of himself in you, and he doesn't want to give you something that you didn't earn. He doesn't want you to get hurt by going on missions and not being up to the challenge of going against an enemy and dying. It doesn't matter anymore, Naruto said, sounding dejected still. I still failed the test. I have no choice now but to go to normal school. The disgusted face Naruto made as he said the last two words made Mizuki truly laugh. Naruto was mentally giving himself an award for his acting. This is too easy, Mizuki thought. Well, what if there was a second way? Would you be willing to do your best to take a secondary exam? The widening of Naruto's eyes was all Mizuki needed for his confirmation. He motioned Naruto to follow him, and they both left to a more secluded area to talk. Unknowingly to Mizuki, Naruto's silent watcher followed. Once they arrived in the training area nearest to the school, Mizuki looked around and began talking again. Alright, Naruto. Here is the deal. There is a program that was designed for students more like the Uchiha and other students who are more like you. For one reason or another, they were unable to pass the normal genin selection exams, but, he stressed the word but to make sure he had Naruto's attention with it. You have a sponsor who believes in you. What? You see, Naruto, the job of a ninja is to complete their mission, using whatever skills are available to them. In your case, and those like it where a student may not show his ability on paper or in a classroom setting, we have a test where you are given a fake mission, where everything is set up, and you are judged based on your performance. You must have a teacher who sponsors you, who gets permission from the Hokage, which I have already done, if you will agree to it, and your sponsor gives you a Black Ops mission set up by the Hokage. I'll do it. Naruto was quivering in excitement as Mizuki laughed wholeheartedly. Things were going exactly the same. Alright, Naruto. If you're that sure and don't want to think it over, these are the requirements. Object 1. You are to tell absolutely no one of your mission. That is why it is considered a Black Ops. Should you be captured, it will be exactly the same as though you were a foreign shinobi. You will be questioned about who sent you and what your mission was and what you know about your own village and such. Object 2. You are to be seen by no one, and anyone you are found by must be incapacitated by any means necessary. You are only a genin hopeful, going against anyone between you and your mission, so they can defend themselves and will play exactly the same as if this were real. They will attack you and they will question your presence. Object 3. You are to be judged on all abilities used, therefore, stealth, speed, cunning and such, all of that will be evaluated, so work accordingly. Now your mission is to break into the Hokage's office and steal a replica of the Forbidden Scroll. He noticed Naruto's eyes widen and decided to head off any questions. It won't be the original, Naruto. It will only have whatever techniques Hokage-sama feels you are allowed to learn. He creates the scroll based on who is taking the exam, but you will not be allowed to keep it. That brings us to the second portion of the exam. Alright. I'm listening. Naruto was smiling like a loon and loving every minute of this. Good, Naruto. Now, the second part is to learn as much from the scroll as you can and then show me what you've learned. After that, we do the evaluation and I will take the scroll back to Hokage-sama, as you are not permitted to allow any harm to come to the scroll whatsoever. Got everything? When Naruto confirmed that he did, and summarized the actual mission, Mizuki smiled at him, and then explained, in great detail, what the scroll looked like and where to find it before sending Naruto on his way. Naruto silently slipped through the ventilation ducts of the Hokage's office. Years of being chased by villagers and outrunning the ANBU of Konoha and several years of war had given him an astounding stealth ability, and he made sure to incorporate every single iota of his skill in avoiding the guards within the building and make his way through. His current level of chakra control was higher than it would have been, which included masking his chakra from the guards who were taught to detect such things, so things were even easier than his first time around. Dropping silently to the floor, Naruto went to the bookshelf along the inside wall and opened the hidden wall where the scroll was held. He checked for any traps and, not finding any, grabbed the scroll before closing the hidden wall. He was about to jump back into the air duct when he detected the third Hokage at the door. His own ability to disguise his chakra signature coming naturally kept it at a low enough level that he was too close before Naruto noticed it to hide. Naruto? What are you doing with the Forbidden Scroll? The Sandaime Hokage was coming back to get his pipe and was quite shocked to see Naruto with the Forbidden Scroll of all of Konoha's most secret techniques strapped to Naruto's back. The only reasons he could come up with for taking it all ended badly, so he hoped it was something other than Naruto planning to turn missing Nin. Heh, sorry you caught me, old man. I ain't gonna lose my final chance. This is one test I know I can win. Oiroku no Jutsu. Naruto disappeared to the Hokage's eyes, and when the smoke disappeared, an incredibly beautiful blonde woman with her long hair and pigtails to either side showed up. The truly magnificent aspect, however, was that she was completely and utterly nude. The older man's eyes couldn't miss the fact that her figure was perfect, or that the truly tantalizing bits were covered in wisps of smoke that seemed to caress her skin. He stood there, wide-eyed in shock as the beautiful woman in front of him turned her head down and looked at him through her eyelashes to speak in a very quiet and hesitant voice. Hokage-sama? Please touch me. The nude girl watched, highly amused, as the great Hokage of Konoha, supposedly the most powerful shinobi in the village, flew back into the wall from a massive nosebleed so strong, it knocked him out. Naruto poofed back into his true form with a grin as he jumped into the ventilation system again, planning on making up for lost time and for having gotten caught. I swear, all of the adults in this village are perverts. Not that I can blame them. Ero-sensei's books are pretty great. He quickly made his way to where Hinata was hiding in wait and gave her the scroll. You want me to copy everything, correct? Hinata asked. Yup. You'll have about 3 hours for the old man to wake up and before I kick Mizuki's ass, so you'll need to work quick if there are as many as this thing seems to hold. He handed her the scroll and then used a stick and cast a genjutsu on it to turn it into the forbidden scroll for him to carry. Can do, she said, leaning in to give him a kiss. Just try to keep things similar. He gave her a wide grin. Iruka was laying in bed, wondering if he should have passed Naruto like Mizuki had suggested. It really wasn't that he didn't want Naruto to succeed, as it was quite the opposite, but he couldn't, in good conscience, send him out when he felt it would be practically like sending him out to his death. If Naruto wasn't able to perform such a simple jutsu, how could he hope to pull off the stronger ones? There was a natural order to things where you work your way up from weak to strong. He was perhaps the only teacher at the academy that understood him in any way and didn't hate him for what he carried, and he couldn't help but wonder if he couldn't have possibly tried to help him out in some other way. Maybe spend more time with him on his chakra control exercises or perhaps work on that specific jutsu one day after class until he could do it in his sleep. Iruka would have continued on his train of thought if a knocking hadn't sounded at his door. Getting up to answer it, he was surprised at who he saw. Naruto's stolen the forbidden scroll. Hokage-sama wants all Chunin and above at the tower. With that, Mizuki took off, making sure Iruka was right behind him. Naruto, what have you done? Iruka put on a burst of speed and pulled ahead of Mizuki while Mizuki was thinking something else. Damn it! I thought everything through so much. How could I forget to tell him to meet me in a set place? If it weren't for that, I could have already found the little brat and been out of here. He was well aware that his only real choice at this point was to follow Iruka, as he had a knack for being able to find Naruto when he didn't want to be found. Understand? I do not want Naruto harmed. I need to know exactly what is going on and how he knew where the scroll was at. Move out! Sarutobi's robes billowed harshly behind him as the large group of ninja in front of him jumped out of formation, searching for the boy. He called all of them as they were the ones who, mostly, didn't seem to hold any form of grudge against the boy. As he was walking back to his office, he couldn't help but think of the technique Naruto had used against him, a slight blush adorning his cheeks. Such a fearsome technique to be wielded by one so young. Perhaps I should consider having it placed within the scroll, assuming we get it back. Oh Naruto, why did you take it? The Sandaime finally reached his office and sat in his large chair. He pulled out a crystal ball he frequently used to check up on things in his village. He used it now, to find Naruto. He had let Naruto get a decent head start due to needing to call out the ninja and having no clue how long he had been out, though he suspected only a few minutes. It truly was a terrifying technique. Naruto! What the hell do you think you're doing? Naruto was happy to finally see Iruka show up. He'd left the false scroll open just enough to show the steps to the Kage Bunshin technique and pretended to practice the night away, knowing that the Hokage had watched in his crystal ball. Iruka-sensei. I found you. No, you idiot. I found you. What did you think you were doing stealing the forbidden scroll? Iruka jumped onto the ground to stand near Naruto, who simply burst into a large smile. I can do one of the techniques off of the scroll. Does that mean I pass now? What? Taking a moment to step back, Iruka looked at the clearing and at Naruto, who looked to be nearly exhausted with how he was holding himself slightly hunched over. He was covered in dirt and sweat, and the whole clearing absolutely reeked of Naruto's chakra, and the location wasn't very far from the Hokage Tower. If he had planned on meeting some enemy shinobi or doing something more drastic like trying to learn his own techniques for having lost his chance for becoming a genin, Naruto knew of locations far more secure where he could practice and have far less of a chance of someone finding him. Well, aren't you here for the sponsored genin test where I was given a pretend mission? Naruto's memory of this event was forever etched into his memory, and he easily flew through the dialogue with Iruka. Naruto, there isn't another genin test. Tell me what. Ah, so it seems you found him at last. Naruto and Iruka turned to the branches in the trees above them at the same time as the voice of Mizuki spoke. Mizuki! So you're the one behind this. That's right, Irika, Mizuki said with a sinister smile. Naruto! Give me the scroll! No, Naruto! Don't do it! Mizuki is just using you to get the forbidden scroll. Take it and run, I'll keep him busy. Irika was inconspicuously trying to move between Mizuki and Naruto, using his sudden head movements and yelling as decoy to his whole body shifting as he moved. Naruto! Would you like to know why so many people hate and despise you? Would you like to hear about the secret that only you are not allowed to know about? Naruto adopted a look of confusion and looked between Irika and Mizuki. What are you talking about? Mizuki, don't! Irika couldn't figure out a way to get to Mizuki without leaving Naruto wide open for an attack. He hadn't thought before leaving his apartment, leaving him without shuriken or kunai. 12 years ago, the demon Kyuubi attacked Konoha. But it wasn't killed off like your history books tell you. A malicious smile grew over Mizuki's face as Irika attempted to interrupt him. Don't listen to him, Naruto. Instead, the yandere sealed the Kyuubi away into a baby. He paused for dramatic effect before continuing. He always did have a flair for the theatrics. You are the Kyuubi no Kitsune. That is why everyone in Konoha hates you, Naruto. You are the one who killed off entire families. Remembering that he'd fallen on his butt the last time around, which caused Irika to jump into a Fuma shuriken to save his life, Naruto decided instead to stay standing, but put a look of shock on his face. Even Irika hates you, Naruto. You killed his parents. Mizuki struck what seemed to be a heroic pose. And now, demon, I am going to finish you off for good. With the last word, Mizuki grabbed the windmill shuriken from his back and launched it at Naruto, who was still looking towards Irika. As he heard Mizuki yell out while throwing the shuriken, he turned towards him, ready to block the shuriken if Irika didn't block it like before. He watched as Irika leapt in front of him and heard a slight grunt and liquid warmth cover his face. Naruto could see the pained expression on his sensei's face as he covered him with his own body, the large shuriken sticking out of his back. Irika sensei, what? Seeing this happen all over again wasn't exactly something Naruto wanted to see, but he knew it all had to happen the same way. He still didn't like it though. I didn't hate you, Naruto. We were so much alike that I wanted you to be better than I was. Irika coughed out a little blood before looking at Naruto and smiling sadly. "If failed," he coughed again, wincing in severe pain as the shuriken shook above him. "Naruto," he whispered, "run. Don't let Mizuki get the scroll." "Oh. How entertaining. So touching. Irika, you actually fell for the demon's trickery." Mizuki laughed out loud as he commented. "Irika, you truly are a fool. Naruto. Give me the scroll now." He unhooked the last windmill shuriken from his back after speaking. "Naruto, if he gets that, any of Konoha's enemies could come for us. Run!" Naruto did exactly what Irika told him. He grabbed the scroll and took off, ready to get the whole night over with. "Irika, you truly are an idiot. Now I have to find him all over again." With that, the silver-haired Chunin took off after his elusive prey. Sarutobi was extremely displeased with the way things were being handled. He hadn't expected someone on the inside to have used Naruto's insecurities and willingness to succeed as drive to steal the forbidden scroll. Why would he have? It wasn't even as much that Mizuki had tricked Naruto into pilfering the scroll to begin with, but that Naruto had done it with such ease. Had he not come back for his pipe, Mizuki may very well have gotten away with this. No one would have checked in on the scroll until it was next needed, which could have been months, or up until a new Hokage was inducted into office. At first, he was truly quite proud of Naruto for having learned the Kage Bunshin technique. He had come in not too long after he started it, and was amazed at how quickly he was picking it up. Admittedly, Sarutobi didn't know why Naruto had taken the scroll, but once he realized he was practicing the techniques, he knew it couldn't have been Naruto trying to pull this off on his own. Only a select few actually knew where the forbidden scroll was housed. As crafty as Naruto was, which sometimes scared the old man, he knew Naruto wouldn't have been able to figure it all out in one day, and he would have had no reason before failing the Genin selection exam to actually plan any of this. It was when Mizuki told Naruto about the Kyuubi, however, that he felt worse than anything else that night had made him feel. He remembered a few occasions when Naruto was younger that he had asked why the villagers seemed to hate him, or if he had some kind of disease that made the adults pull their children away from him. When this was all over, he knew he would have a lot of explaining to do. He just hoped he would be able to do so. Still, though, something seemed off about the scroll. Naruto was hiding behind a tree as Irika fell to the forest floor. Irika had just used a henge to fool Mizuki into thinking he was Naruto, while Mizuki attempted to use a henge of Irika to fool Naruto. "You're a fool, Irika." You saw the look in his eyes as he left the clearing. They were the eyes of a demon. He's going to use that scroll to destroy the village now. You realize that, don't you? Mizuki taunted. "You're right. Naruto prepared himself for the words he knew were coming with pride in the man who came to be his older brother. If he were the demon, the Kyuubi, then he would destroy the village. But he is Uzumaki Naruto, a protector of Konohagakure. Naruto will never harm this village. Naruto smiled widely as his heart swelled with pride. You're just deluding yourself, Irika. I had planned to simply let you live, or kill you after taking care of the demon, but I think I'll kill you now. Die, Irika. Mizuki launched the shuriken he hadn't thrown while they were still all in the clearing at Irika, a gleeful smile over his face as he watched Irika accept his fate and not even attempt to dodge. That smile faded, however, when an orange blur came from nowhere and hit the shuriken with a kunai, making it hit to the side of Irika's shocked head, though only just. Don't you lay a finger on Irika-sensei. I'll kill you if you do. Mizuki simply seemed amused by the turn of events. What do you truly believe you can do? I'm a chunin. You aren't even a genin. I'll crush you in one blow. And I'll return it 1,000 times, team. Naruto put his fingers into a cross chop, his index and middle fingers crossing while the rest remained curled as he called out his newest technique. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Suddenly, the entire forest was covered in smoke, and when it cleared, every available space was filled with a Naruto clone. Amazing, Irika thought. He was able to learn a Jounin class technique in only a few hours, and from a scroll, no less. Naruto amazing. Mizuki, however, was nowhere near as thrilled. He gaped at the sight of 1,000 Naruto clones, spinning every which way in hopes of seeing a place where a clone wasn't occupying. What? Impossible. What's the matter, team? Weren't you going to kick my ass? The amplified voice of so many clones, not speaking fully in sync with each other, was mesmerizing. It truly made Mizuki feel helpless. No? Well, then why don't I make the first move? With that, 1,000 Naruto clones attacked the frightened Chunin, barely leaving enough for Ibiki in the torture and interrogation department. Just as he finished, the Hokage showed up with 4 ANBU, 2 of which took Mizuki to the hospital so he could be healed, only to be questioned later. The other 2 took Irika for healing as well, but not before Irika decided Naruto passed his genin selection exam, giving him his own headband as a sign of acceptance and trust. That, and a lack of any extras laying around as he wouldn't taint the experience by using Mizuki's, who he doubted would be wearing it any time soon. Naruto. Team selections are Monday. You had better be there, understood? A smiling Naruto shook his head that he understood while following the Hokage back to his office to explain exactly what had happened. Oi, old man. We've got to get Hinata-chan first. Curiously, the Sandame raised an eyebrow. Why is that, Naruto-kun? Naruto flashed his trademark grin as the scroll he had in his hands erupted into a cloud of smoke to become the stick it once was. I knew Mizuki-teen was up to something, so I failed the ninjutsu portion on purpose since he'd been trying to befriend me. I saw the directions for the Kage Bunshin before giving it to her, just in case he wasn't, and then cast that henge onto the stick. Hinata-chan is the only person I knew I could trust if it was actually a lie, since I couldn't tell you or Irika-sensei due to the rules he gave me. Sarutobi and several of the ANBU raised their eyebrows in surprise. It was actually a good plan. No one would suspect the Hyuga heiress of having it. Why did you choose her, and where is she? Naruto shrugged as he tossed the stick aside and began to walk. I chose her because she knew about my fears from the beginning and already agreed to help me in case something like this happened, he said, going into the scripted response when telling the Hokage what was happening. And we rendezvous, he trailed off as Hinata came from around the edge of the building about 30 yards ahead. Here. Hello, Hinata-san. Out for a late night stroll? I do find them to be quite relaxing myself. Hinata smiled and handed the scroll to the Sandame, who opened it to check its contents, and then quickly closed it back up. Did you get him, Naruto-kun? Naruto nodded. Yes, ma'am, he replied in mock seriousness. I have stopped the cruelty of the evil one and, OMPH. He was cut off as a smiling Hinata elbowed him in the ribs. Remember your decorum in front of Hokage-sama, she chided. Ah, he's just an old man OMPH. He covered his ribs after another brutal assault and decided to go with the safe route when your girlfriend gave you an order. Yes, dear. Sarutobi chuckled as some of the ANBU snickered at their byplay while Irika's face was simply locked into a state of muted, shocked horror. I do believe we have a conversation to have, Naruto-kun, Hinata-san. Story. Naruto and Hinata followed the Sandame Hokage into his office while the ANBU secured the outside and took Irika to the hospital for treatment. Naruto dragged 2 of the chairs from the wall to the front of the Sandame's desk and sat with Hinata while Sarutobi settled himself in his plush chair. Alright, you two. I'd like to know why you decided to take this event on your own rather than alerting the Gigi, Naruto interrupted. There's a lot more to this than Mizuki and the Forbidden Scroll. Naruto and Hinata had decided and agreed upon how much they were going to tell the aging Hokage during their second week back in time and the best way to go about getting their needs met. It was all hinging on getting him to believe them, however. Such as what, Naruto? Naruto and Hinata looked at each other, and silently gained a quick burst of assurance from each other before Naruto turned back to Sarutobi and began speaking. Alright, Gigi. You're going to have to hear me out before you ask any questions. We've got a long story to tell you and I don't want to lose my momentum when I get going. The Sandaime nodded his head and waited for Naruto's tale. He always had a doozy when he got going. Well, first, how secure is this room? The Hokage raised an eyebrow at Naruto's opener but activated a soundproofing jutsu while Hinata checked with her Byakugan to make sure no one was around and that there were no listening devices, giving Naruto a nod of approval and then deactivated her Dijitsu. No one can hear anything being spoken within the room now, Naruto. We can speak freely. Naruto nodded and then leaned back into the couch. What do you know about time travel? Shocked senseless for a few moments, Sarutobi finally spluttered a reply. They are impossible. There have been attempts in the past, yes, but none have ever successfully been used as far as anyone knows. Naruto nodded quickly. For obvious reasons, we can't say too much of what we know. However, Hinata-chan and I came back 7 years from the future with the Kyuubi's help because things were getting dicey for us and for Konoha. You mean to tell me, Sarutobi said disbelievingly before Naruto could continue, that you and Hinata-san are from the future? Naruto and Hinata both nodded. Why? We were at war and things were about to get very, very bad. I had a jutsu that I planned to use that would take out enough of their numbers to leave them only outnumbering us 3-1 instead of about 7-1, Naruto said as the Hokage seemed to pale at the implications. Just for the possibility that this wasn't some sick joke. However, using it would have killed off Kyuubi almost immediately by using all of her power, and I would have followed after not much longer. She didn't want to die, so she offered us this. Who were we at war with? Orochimaru. Sarutobi sighed and pulled out his pipe and began smoke, hoping to get a slightly stronger hold on the situation. I don't suppose either of you can offer me any proof of this. Well, only our memories came back. No chakra, nothing physical came back and no physical changes happened because of the time traveling. So we could only really think of a couple of things that would work, Hinata said. This was a topic she made very sure to overrule anything Naruto thought to offer to tell Sarutobi when it would be too much. Something about what she said seemed off to the aged Hokage, but couldn't catch it right away and didn't want to dwell on it. What things were those, Hinata-san? Hinata gave a pointed look to Naruto, knowing that he knew what she wanted to show the old man. Naruto, always willing to entertain, held his right hand out causing a swirling mass of blue chakra to form in the palm of his hand. His increased chakra control making it nearly as easy as breathing. He looked up to see the Sandaime with a gobsmacked expression plastered across his face. Naruto, where did you learn that? Sarutobi felt a severe case of déjà vu as he watched Naruto form the Rasengan in his hand. Only 2 men had known that technique. One was an old pervert and the other was the Yondaime himself. Naruto simply let the technique die out as he smiled brightly. Ero-sensei taught me about 6 years ago. Suddenly seeing where he was going wrong, he amended himself. Make that in about 7 months. Hinata smiled and looked to the Hokage. We're also aware of who Naruto-kun's parents truly were. Namikaze Minato, Yondaime Hokage of Konoha and Uzumaki Kushina, Jounin of what was formerly Whirlpool before Iwa's destruction of it. Sarutobi slouched in his chair as he realized that the 2 of them were either very sure of their information and created this elaborate story for confirmation, or they really were from the future. Only 7 people know of Naruto's lineage, and none of them would have said anything. So, it would seem you truly did come back, he said gravely. What are your plans now that you've returned? Well, Hinata began, the last time through, only my team had any actual specialization as trackers. Naruto-kun's team was generalized. And Kakashi team only taught me tree climbing in the year I was with him, Naruto interrupted her, getting a firm whack on the back of his head for his trouble. Anyway, Hinata continued, we would like you to put at least myself and Naruto on the same team. I was with Abdurrahim Shino and Inuzuka Kiba under Yuhi Kurenai, and she taught us quite a bit, so we can work well under her. Kakashi-san did very little with his team, leaving us with quite a bit of time to work on things on our own if we should be placed with him, and she blushed slightly and couldn't look the Sandaime in the eye. Sarutobi Asuma did as little as possible aside from playing shogi with Shikamaru during his team's training periods. We think he relied on the synergy of a Narekeyama group like their parents. Sarutobi's cheeks pinked lightly at hearing of his son's lackluster performances, but couldn't deny the likelihood that it was exactly what he may have done. However, he couldn't give them to a teacher who would teach them nothing. It would be a waste of resources and abilities. So you would like to gain a sensei for a more specialized purpose, then? What do you feel your objectives will be for the next several years? Well, we will need to gain skills to get information on Orochimaru, his people, Akatsuki and any other potential enemies. Kumo and IWA took any chances they could to align against us, but we never figured out exactly when they joined up with Orochimaru. We know it was after the Chunin exams, but are unsure exactly when. Why are you sure it was after the Chunin exams? He asked, hoping there was a specific event that he could use to make Konoha shine where they may have failed previously. Naruto frowned and scrunched his forehead in thought. Well, Sound and Sand attacked us during the final stages of the Chunin selection exams when it was hosted in Konoha, so they would have attacked during that if they were going to. We were almost wiped out as it was. But I don't actually know why they didn't attack afterwards. Actually, Tsunade mentioned that one night after she had been drinking a bit, Hinata offered. Had Sarutobi not believed them before, that would have clinched it for him. Word spread through Suna and Oto about how you handled Gaara single-handedly, and they were worried that we had another yandere on our hands. She giggled at Naruto's surprised expression. Well, think about it. Gaara is well known as a Jinchuriki of Shikaku and survived, unscathed from over 100 assassination attempts and all of his missions, and you defeated him. They were worried about what you could have done in an invasion situation without having to face a Jinchuriki who released his demon. Naruto smiled brightly, scratching the back of his head in amusement, while Sarutobi looked back and forth between the two of them. What are you talking about? He knew about Sabaka no Gaara. Any major leader knew about him since Suna never bothered to keep the status of their Jinchuriki a secret. It was widely known that his seal was the weakest available, and they had hired Jiraiya to look at it in the past. If he joined in the fighting, then they had to have lost the majority of their numbers. Well, at the time of the invasion, Gaara was still pretty homicidal and killed pretty much anyone. I fought him and won, even after he let Shikaka take full control and possess him. Sarutobi leaned back and took in what he had heard for a few moments before deciding he'd have to think things over before making any real decisions. Until then, he could help the two out in any way possible. Is there anything you feel you can tell me that I should be wary of in the coming months and years? During the finals at the Chunin exams, Orochimaru, who will be under the guise of the Kazekage after killing him, will have you trapped in a barrier of some kind and summon the first two Hokages. You end up using the Shiki-Fuin to kill those two and take Orochimaru's arms, which forces him into taking a new body to survive, Naruto said. It is that very action, as the jutsu to do so can only be used every 3 years at minimum, that gives us 3 years to wait for him after Uchiha Sasuke defects from us to gain power to kill Itachi. After your death, Ero-sensei and I go to bring back Tsunade and her assistant, Shizen, to be the Godame Hokage. During the next 3 years, I go on a training trip with Ero-sensei to learn to control the Kyuubi's power, seals and better taijutsu while Sakura learns from Tsunade. During this time, we lose forces and thanks to hit and run ambush tactics by Orochimaru and Akatsuki devises and implements their plans to gather all of the Jinchuriki for their ultimate weapon, though we have no clue what it is or what their motivations are. Naruto held up his hands in a helpless gesture. As much as I hate to admit it, you're using that technique on Orochimaru to force him to change bodies so quickly is what gave us those 3 years reprieve from most of Orochimaru's plans. He had put everything on hold to train up Sasuke so he could steal his body and not have as much work to do on it, so we'll have to try and figure out a safer way to take his arms from him, Naruto finished, leaning back. I'm afraid that's all we can tell you without going into details of pretty much everything, or things that won't matter. Sarutobi sighed and rubbed the bridge of his nose. Very well then. I will think over what you have told me and form the teams accordingly. He looked almost desperately at the two in front of him as an idea struck. What about Sasuke? Do you know of any ways we may be able to keep him in Konoha? Both shook their heads. From what I understand, Sakura wormed her way into his heart during our times together, but not enough to keep him from turning on us. I learned a while after returning from my training trip with Ero-sensei about that. Sarutobi nodded in grim acceptance. Very well. And you, Hinata-san, he asked, turning to her. I've heard much about Naruto's involvement, but you haven't spoken much. Can you add anything? Hinata shrugged and looked apologetic. Naruto-kun was in the middle of everything that happened. The Chunin exams, the invasion, Orochimaru, Sasuke and the Akatsuki. In my case, my team worked together as trackers until Naruto returned. After that, and after Sakura-san's death at the hands of Sasuke, Tsunade took me on as an apprentice for 2 years before we came back, with the occasional mission with Naruto-kun to try and retrieve Sasuke from Orochimaru's hold. I wasn't a part of much that had happened until the war started. I haven't even managed to learn her super strength technique yet, though I understand the theory for the temporary version. The Sandaime steepled his fingers and nodded. I understand. I will think about your needs in the future and attempt to think of how best to use your talents for what is to come. Have you both participated in the skirmishes in the war? He asked, getting nods. If you're trying to find a delicate way of asking if we've killed, then yes. If you mean planning anything or being in on the intelligence, then only partially, Naruto said. The council forbid me from participating with anything I knew, regardless of its use, since they feared I may work against them, and most of what I learned came from Hinata-chan, since she was allowed to be in there with the Hokage during their strategy meetings. All right. I think I have everything I need. If you feel you need to give me any new information, please don't hesitate to offer it. I understand you do not want to change too much of the future to make your knowledge obsolete, but it is also not a good idea to rely on it so much that you lose focus of where things change. Both Naruto and Hinata's eyes widened. They hadn't really considered that they could rely too strongly on their knowledge, but they suddenly realized that they were changing things incredibly by simply changing the teams, no matter how necessary it would be. I will create the teams and see what I can do about finding you a compatible third member. While I think it may be a good idea to put you with Sasuke to keep an eye on him, I'm worried about keeping you active with 2 members and a third who is unfamiliar with your methods. Sarutobi shook his head to clear it and grew stern-faced. I will place you both on classified S-class missions to find and eliminate Orochimaru and the members of Akatsuki as you can. This will be an ongoing mission, so you will be paid accordingly. I will also count this event tonight as an SS-class mission by labeling Mizuki as a traitor who knew a lot more than we thought he would to begin with and give them to you as separate missions since you both did something different, he told them, making their eyes go wide. An SS-class mission would keep Naruto paid and in comfort for a few months, not counting the ongoing one where he would be paid continuously. This will also allow me to classify the missions so only myself, and those I tell will have any information on this. I can think of no safer way to protect it than the Hokage's personal mission vaults. Aside from the rank in your genin files, no specifics aside from your return status can be obtained. I am doing this in part for the information you've been able to provide, but also, so you can buy any equipment you may need so you can buy whatever you need to outfit yourself and get yourselves back up to speed. Do you have any questions? Both shook their heads and Sarutobi deactivated the soundproofing seal in the room. Thank you for your information. I'm sure Mizuki can fill in the rest. Realizing they were being dismissed, both Naruto and Hinata bowed and turned to leave before Naruto turned back to him. Oh, old man. In about 3.5 months, you'll get an escort mission from an old drunk called Tazuna to the Land of Wave. He's a bridge builder. I need my team on that mission. Quirking an eyebrow, Sarutobi asked the follow-up question. Why is that, Naruto? Well, when I went there with Team 7, there were 2 missing nin. They were killed during the fight at the bridge where Sasuke activated his Sharingan, and they learned that they were betrayed by their employer. But I think I may be able to get them on our side. One has a powerful bloodline and the other is a member of the 7 swordsmen from Mist. I'll see what I can do, Naruto. With a smile, Naruto left with Hinata, who was waiting at the door for him. Once he was alone, the Sandaime looked around suspiciously before stomping his right leg onto the ground with a pulse of chakra, causing a hidden latch to pop open and a large bottle of sake was pulled out with a grunt and heavy sigh. I need a bigger bottle. Naruto and Hinata worked the rest of the weekend on testing most of the ninjutsu they knew and adapt themselves to using them with their current chakra control and reserves. Naruto in particular was thrilled that the Rasengan itself was so much easier for him to use. Even adding in his wind element into it was a simple thing for him to do. He just had to limit himself from using it since genin didn't work with nature manipulation. Hinata, however, was thrilled with her own personal skills. All techniques aside from the techniques she knew that were traditionally non-Hyuga, she was able to use as freely as she wanted. The only things she had to limit herself from using were some of the more advanced medical jutsu she had learned from Tsunade. She kept most secret like Naruto, but was more than pleased to show them off later. So, why haven't you tried to summon any toads? Hinata was currently leaning against a tree as she sat and relaxed after their latest sparring session. Naruto was hanging upside down from the branch above her by his feet with chakra and batting her hair back and forth like a cat with string. Well, Kyuubi mentioned that we would be able to summon her before we came back, right? He paused only a moment to watch her nod. She's been asleep since we changed the seal, so I haven't been able to ask her about that. I'm worried about trying to summon a toad before I sign the contract again. I may try to summon a toad, but might accidentally summon her instead, especially since I haven't technically signed the toad contract in this timeline. And she said she could control her size, but she would be big the first time, so I didn't want to risk it anywhere near Konoha. Ah. Good point, she said, leaning back comfortably. Who do you think the old man is going to put with us? I'm not sure, she said. I suppose it depends on what he does with the information we gave him. He could put us with Sasuke to keep an eye on him and possibly take him out if it comes to it, or Shikamaru for his mental aptitude or Shino for his Kikai bugs and what they can do. She shrugged, showing she wasn't really overly concerned while Naruto nodded in agreement. Unless he decides to put us with someone totally new or leave us as our own 2-person squad. Hinata giggled as Naruto began to bounce in place, but laughed outrageously when he bounced too hard and jumped into the ground. We'll just have to see when we get there, Naruto-kun. Now come on, I'm being forced into dinner tonight at home, but you can buy me lunch, she said, grinning as she helped him up. And no ramen. Cheeky little minx, aren't you? Naruto had been so excited that he'd actually tricked the 2 leotard-clad men his mornings had been reserved for to run around the village as fast as they could, giving him the opportunity to leave early. When he arrived back at his apartment, Hinata was already there and laying on his couch, waiting for him to show up so they could go to the academy. As was their new custom, Naruto and Hinata walked into the classroom that Monday, both sitting in the back of the classroom where they had been for the last whole month. "I'm so glad you don't plan on trying to kiss Sasuke this time around, Naruto-kun," Hinata said, her expression anything but innocent. "You know very well that wasn't a kiss. And I didn't want to do it." Hinata snickered and hugged Naruto's arm to herself. "Of course, Naruto-kun. I believe you," she said, sounding anything but sincere, causing Naruto to grumble good-naturedly as Sakura and Ino came in and took a seat 2 rows away from them, 3 rows from where they knew the Uchiha to sit. "I wonder why they aren't fighting over Sasuke like last time," Naruto murmured to himself. He looked where he knew Sasuke was supposed to be but found him not there yet. Oh, they showed up earlier than they did last time. They even seem more civil towards one another and aren't fighting over him yet. Beside him, Hinata blushed, thinking Ino may very well have taken her advice. "Sasuke-kun!" Both Sakura and Ino rushed to surround both of Sasuke's sides as he sat in his seat, latching onto his arms like squealing, giggling leeches. Maybe she didn't, Hinata thought. "All right, you lot. Sit down and shut up," Iruka commanded as he walked through the door with a clipboard in his hands. "Congratulations each of you. You're genin," and he was cut off as the most of the students cheered for themselves and their accomplishment before getting them back under control. Then, he explained how the life of a ninja was to take their missions and protect their village until they were unable to do so any longer. At this point, Naruto laid his head on the desk and toned everything out until Hinata's elbow in his side brought his attention back in the middle of team placements. Team 7, Haruno Sakura, Inuzuka Kiba and Uchiha Sasuke. "Yes. Take that, I know pig. Sasuke is all mine and—" "Sit down and shut up, Sakura!" Iruka yelled, already in a bad mood thanks to the Sandaime changing the teams to his own placements. "Your sensei is Hatake Kakashi. Team 8, Hyuga Hinata, Uzumaki Naruto and Yamanaka Ino. You actually have 2 teachers, Yuhi Kurenai and Mitarashi Anko." Suddenly, Naruto screamed bloody murder and flew back out of his chair onto his butt. "You mean you're sticking us with that psycho snake chick?" His eyes moved back and forth as if expecting her to pop up out of nowhere. The entire class at this point was looking at him with wide eyes. "Is there a problem, Naruto?" Iruka asked, rather surprised at the boy's actions. While the adults held a tendency to look down on her for her past, he honestly wouldn't have thought Naruto would be one to follow suit considering his own unique history. She hasn't exactly liked me since a few years ago when I pranked her by lacing her dango with laxatives," he mumbled, currently looking under his desk. "That was you!" An enraged shout from above the ceiling tiles in the corner of the room brought everyone's attention back again as the tile in the corner broke and an enraged Anko dropped down, fury in her eyes. "I was on my way to a month-long border patrol mission, you little shit!" Kurenai poked her head down from the hole in the ceiling, pinching the bridge of her nose. "Anko, we weren't supposed to be seen observing the new genin." Anko seemed to ignore her as she drew a kunai in each hand. "You're mine, ramen boy." Naruto let out a squeak as he dodged each of the kunai she sent his way. Meanwhile, the rest of the class ignored them aside from Hinata, who tried to tell him he was only getting what he deserved. "Bend over and take it like a man." "Iruka-sensei," Ino asked while ignoring the girlish squeal from Naruto who was now clutching his butt, "why are Hinata and I on the same team? Isn't it normally 2 guys and a girl?" Sasuke snorted and finally decided to open his mouth. "Isn't it obvious? Why else would you have 2 different teachers instead of the usual one? With the dead last on your team, you're obviously the team that was put together because you're all useless." Suddenly, the kunai stopped flying as both Anko and Naruto turned to the last Uchiha. "Wanna say that again, team?" Naruto asked as he cracked his knuckles. "I think the Uchiha needs to be taught a lesson," Anko said. 2 black mambas slithered from within the sleeves of her trench coat. "All of you. Sit down." Iruka's voice, a standard tone used for students who were bad, immediately caused all of those who were standing to sit wherever they were. In the case of Naruto and Anko, that was in the middle of the aisle. "Now, Ino, the Sandaime-sama created the teams himself this time around. Naruto, Hinata and yourself are going to be a special assignment squad based on all of your unique talents. Anko and Kurenai should be able to tell you more about it. Now no more questions." He straightened his vest before going back to his clipboard. "Team 10 is going to be Akamichi Chuji, Naresh Shikamaru and Aburaim Shino. Your sensei is Sarutobi Asuma. You will all enjoy an hour-long lunch and then come back to meet." He looked askance at Anko who was inching a kunai towards Naruto, "or rather, officially meet your instructors from here on out. I recommend taking this time to get to know your teammates. Good luck, everyone." Almost immediately, Naruto took off like a rocket, followed by Anko as the other students congregated towards their new teammates. The exception being Haruno Sakura, who was suddenly stuck to Sasuke like a squealing leech before being pried off, and Sasuke left quickly. Ino made her way over to Hinata and they walked together to a large tree and began to eat from their bentos. So, kinda weird how they decided to set up our team, eh? Hinata nodded her head as she swallowed a bite of rice. Yes. We certainly hadn't expected that, but I suppose it makes sense. Ino frowned at Hinata in confusion. Weren't expecting what? Hinata barely repressed a cringe as she realized her mistake. Academy students weren't supposed to know or be able to influence the teams. Well, she was cut off as an orange blob landed on the ground next to her. Lost her, he said, accepting the food Hinata was handing him. Thanks, Tenchi-chan. You know she'll just be here in an hour and get you then, right? She knows exactly where you'll be, Ino said, smirking as his face paled. Damn it. Both girls laughed lightly as they continued to eat. You know, I honestly expected for myself and Shikamaru and Chuji to end up on a team together. Our parents thought it would happen too. They've even had us playing together since we were born for probably that very reason. Ino shook her head in wonderment of how she could have expected something as almost ironclad and then be thrown for the proverbial loop. Well, we'll see what they have to tell us later, Hinata said, pilfering a piece of tuna from Naruto's plate, while he looked around quickly for any sign of Anko. Teammate with us. Kurenai and Anko led the three kids, Naruto being sure to keep both girls in front of him and behind Anko, out and to the pond behind the academy. They settled themselves by the beginner's swimming section in a small circle. Don't worry, kid, Anko said to Naruto with a casual smirk. If I'm going to get you back, it's going to be when I can make it far more humiliating. Naruto shivered. He knew that smirk. That was the smirk she had when she faced off against Orochimaru and sacrificed her life just to take an arm with her to the afterlife. That was a smirk that said he was doomed. Be nice, Anko-sensei. I don't want to have to kill you for harming my Naruto-kun. The matter-of-fact way Hinata chastised Anko surprised each of them, though the smile on her own face is what really creeped Anko out. She couldn't tell if the girl was playing with her or serious. Hinata, are you okay? Kurenai asked. Hinata was never one to threaten anyone before. She was always a gentle and loving girl who had the most obvious crush on the most idiotic boy in the village. It seemed he finally figured it out after 5 years, but really? Yes, Kurenai-sensei. But if anyone gets to punish Naruto-kun, I'd rather it be me, she finished with a wink that had the elder woman spluttering while Ino and Anko laughed uproariously, and Naruto blushed. He liked his punishments so far. Oh, okay. Let's get this shindig rolling, Anko said from the ground. Likes, dislikes, dreams for the future, that sort of thing. Ramen brat, you first. Naruto glared, but did as ordered. Uzumaki Namike's Naruto. I like ramen, trying to eat new types of ramen, and Hinata-chan, even though she won't let me eat it more than once a day, training and developing new jutsu. I hate Thames and the 3 minutes it takes for ramen to finish cooking, and I really hate how long it takes for Hinata's homemade ramen to cook, but it is so worth it, he said, wiggling his fingers and taking on a dreamy expression. Meanwhile, as Hinata and Ino giggled, Anko leaned over to Kurenai. This kid has a one-track mind, she whispered, causing Kurenai to nod. My dreams for the future are to be the best Kage ever and have a big family, he finished, looking at a brightly blushing Hinata who was smiling brightly, causing Kurenai's cackles to rise. Any family making happening within the next 5 years, and I'll personally take my whole kunai set to your baby-making regions, understand me? Kurenai was leaning over the terrified blonde with a kunai between each finger and her fists. Yes ma'am, he squeaked. After another second turned eternity, Kurenai let up on her glare and motioned to Hinata to go next. Hyuga Hinata. I like cooking and teriyaki yakitori, Naruto-kun, even if he does eat too much ramen, medical jutsu and training. I dislike those who are conceited or treat others poorly without first getting to know them. And my dream is to be part of Naruto-kun's very large family, she finished with a grin towards Kurenai that was unmistakable in its meaning. His baby-making regions are all mine. That caused Anko to burst into laughter again, while Ino blushed and snickered. Don't worry, Kurenai-sensei. We don't plan to do anything that far anytime soon, Hinata assured the sputtering woman, bringing her out of her shock. Sighing, she motioned for Ino to continue. I'm Yamanaka Ino. I like flowers, boys, and doing better than Sakura. I dislike people who think girls can't be good kunoichi and people who think I'm an idiot simply because I'm blonde, she said, each person around her noting that she didn't mention Sasuke as of yet when she was a known founder of the boys' fan club. As for dreams for the future, I'm not really sure. I know I want to prove that women can be powerful kunoichi and kick-ass when we need to while maintaining beauty and grace, she smiled brightly before going back to a thinking pose, but don't know other than that. It was true, too. She used to think her largest goal was to beat the only girl she really thought of as a real rival, Hareno Sakura, to Uchiha Sasuke's heart. However, after spending a short time during the day with Naruto and Hinata nearly a month previously, she tried figuring out why Hinata, heiress to the largest clan in Konoha, wouldn't want to try and snag the hottest guy in all of Konoha. After looking at it objectively, she realized one really big thing: Uchiha Sasuke was a complete ass. He was a diva who used the fate of his family to get what he wanted from adults, and ignored any woman who came his way. Well, Kurenai said, looking at each of them, glaring at Naruto, you have each got admirable goals, for the most part. We'll see what we can do to help you achieve your realistic dreams, her glare towards Naruto increasing while Anko offered a thumbs up to Hinata before picking up where Kurenai left off to pick on her latest victim. Now, normally we would offer you a test of some form or another to see if you would actually become genin or go back to the academy. What do you mean, Anko-sensei? Ino asked. Well, out of all of the genin that graduate the academy, only 9 actually become genin on average. The rest are usually sent to the academy to retrain and try again at a later time. However, by special order of the Sandaime Hokage, the 3 of you will be specially trained, which is why Kurenai and myself are here to train you instead of the usual one sensei like your other classmates. So, why are we being specially trained? What are we going to be doing? Both Kurenai and Anko frowned slightly as they glanced at each other. While Naruto and Hinata knew what was going on, they didn't, and Ino knew that look between her parents enough to know that the two of them weren't totally pleased with whatever situation they were in. We aren't sure what he expects you to do, but we know that he wants us to train you with everything we know: assassination, espionage, trapping, tracking, infiltration, and anything else we can think of that you may need to know, Anko said, noting Naruto and Hinata looking calm and collected while Ino's eyes were about to fall out of her head. What the hell do they expect us to do? Take on an army all on our own? She shrieked, causing Kurenai to raise her hands in a warding-off gesture as Anko snorted. You won't be going after an army on your own, Ino, Kurenai said, smiling gently before Anko picked up again. Yeah. And besides, you and the other girls in your class spend so much time fawning over the Uchiha prick that you're way behind in strength, speed, and ability compared to any kunoichi who could handle a real-time battle, she said before noticing a fierce killer intent coming from Hinata. Wide-eyed, she looked at her before wincing. Well, out of his fangirls, that is. Hinata nodded in a damn straight manner before leaning back. Anyway, you 3 won't be tested to see if you make genin. The Sandaime told us that you were to pass no matter what, but that we could test you to see where you stand in a real-time environment. Each of the new genin raised an eyebrow as Kurenai finished, and Anko's predatory smirk hinted at the glimmer of happiness in her eyes. Alright, you 3, Anko said, rubbing her hands together. Test time. Naruto dodged left and leapt off the side wall of the hallway and over the hail of kunai and poisoned saban as they thudded into the space he just escaped from as Hinata ducked and rolled past an ice jutsu that launched from a seal in the wall behind him. What the hell is wrong with that bastard? Naruto used a quick kunai swipe to break a spearhead that came from the carpeted floor that had nearly taken out his baby-making region, while Ino dodged more poisoned saban in the room behind him. What kind of a perverted bastard goes to these kinds of lengths to protect a fucking Ika collection? Ino took refuge behind a couch that thudded lightly as the saban ripped into its cushions. Remind me, Hinata said, sending a blast of chakra into the wall to disable a strong paralysis jutsu before it launched, to look into mail-order wives for Kakashi Baka. Over their radio headsets, Anko and Kurenai laughed uproariously. Kakashi's traps and jutsu seals were in place to protect him and his home from rogue ninja who hoped to win the bounty on his head from multiple countries, usually Nuknin. It was for that reason that all of the saban were poisoned with extremely powerful sedative poisons, so he could capture and turn them in himself, which was just enough to keep him from going broke for his pornographic fetishes. Just barely. Duly noted, Naruto said as he finally broke the hallway and into the large study with a large bookshelf against the far wall where the pervert kept his stash of erotica. He rolled to his feet and looked about suspiciously, noting the lack of hurling projectiles covered in, he hoped beyond hope, wasn't an aphrodisiac sedative cocktail. That would lead to issues he'd really hoped to avoid. I'm in. Hinata landed on the ground next to him, Hibikugen active and her eyes looking about warily. I see chakra-sensitive seals between each Ika book. Effects unknown. Several deadly seals around the broken weapon over the fireplace mantle. No guards, seals, or traps around his jutsu library, she finished, looking pointedly at Naruto who nodded in acknowledgement. A new trove of stolen jutsu just to keep himself from making a scene, he cackled madly within his own mind. What do you think, Naruto-kun? Our mission is to get as much of his collection as we can. Naruto looked about for a moment before smiling evilly. We go the way of Ero-sanin. Over the headset, both Anko and Kurenai looked at each other in confusion as they mouthed Ero-sanin at each other. Naruto continued to explain to Hinata as he moved over to the bookshelf against the wall, making sure to stay to the side with jutsu scrolls. Anko-sensei said the old man authorized this mission as a test because he knew Kakashi's habits. Even if she did fail to mention he was a paranoid bastard, he mumbled more to himself. Anyway, The mission was to succeed in getting Kakashi's books, which means we should be excused for, he looked about sheepishly, unorthodox means of getting them. He pulled a scroll out of his pocket and drew a few quick designs on it before everyone over the comlink heard a cry of "Fuin." "Smart move, Naruto-kun," Hinata said with a smile. "Why deal with the traps when we can just take them with us to deal with later?" Naruto smiled brightly at her. "Thanks." Naruto quickly wrote out a ransom note for the trove of purloined smut and left it stuck to the wall where Kakashi would be sure to notice it. "Guys, I've got something in here, also," Ino called from another room where she was checking for any additional targets. Naruto palmed his face and groaned into his hand. "How much damn porn has this pervert got?" Hinata patted him on the shoulder comfortingly. "You knew he was a pervert, Naruto-kun. It really was expected, after all." Naruto was not very sure if he was glad that he had never seen such horrors in his last time around, when he was a more impressionable youth, or if he wished he had, so he would have been more prepared for the spear that had been aimed for his crotch. "All bloody 4 of them." "I know, but I never knew he was this bad." Ignoring him, Hinata used her Byakugan and looked down the hall. "Most of the traps were tripped at once when you reached the middle of the hallway. If we run through from this side, we should make it out just before we get attacked again." Naruto nodded and they rushed through, making their way over to Ino, who was in Kakashi's bedroom, just at the doorway. "What is it?" Naruto asked, looking about the room only to be disgusted. "That is just wrong." He noticed a large, plastic doll that was blown up and tucked into the bed on one side, with a stack of erotic magazines at the side of the bed with crumpled tissues all over the room and a small television against the wall at the foot of the bed, covered in loose videotapes. Beside him, Hinata dry heaved. "There is no way in hell I'm going into that room, Naruto-kun." Ino nodded mutely in agreement. "Are there any traps or anything we need to worry about?" he asked, ignoring her remark. Shuddering in disgust, she activated her Byakugan and looked about. "The window is heavily trapped, especially on the outside, but there's nothing in the room itself aside from," she trailed off with a cringe, "aside from evidence of his lonely lifestyle." Naruto entered the room slowly as both girls took either side of the doorway and worked their way outwards. As he got to the television, he noticed a tape halfway into the VCR unit. Looking at the title, he saw Anko torturing Kurenai, 1 hour, 27 minutes. Not remembering anything about this from his past, and knowing that both women considered each other close friends, he snatched the tape out and looked at another tape next to the TV, seeing Anko and Kurenai, dirty escape, 2 hours, 12 minutes. Frowning, Naruto put all of the tapes into a box on the floor filled with many others, but some on the top with different names, and sealed it into the scroll next to the bookshelf. "This could be serious. Hinata-chan and I are going to have to go over these and make sure he hasn't been using his Sharingan to make them hurt each other." He looked over to see both girls were unaware of his activities. Hinata knew him well enough to ask questions later, but Ino would cause trouble where the two women in question may be brought into it, and there was no telling what they would do if it was found out. At least this way, they could make a case and bring it to the Hokage if needed. "Either of you two ladies find anything else?" Ino held a hand over her mouth and nose and used a kunai to move a crusty pair of boxers from over a magazine on the nightstand. "Nothing I want to remember," she said as Hinata tiptoed away from a stack of crumpled and used tissues in the corner furthest away from the door. "There's a waste basket under all those used tissues, Naruto-kun, and an old scroll." She brushed imaginary dirt from her clothes frantically for a moment before looking at him with pleading eyes. "There is nothing of use in the rest of here that I can see. Can we get out of here now? I feel dirty." Naruto nodded. "All right. We've got everything we can get, and Kakashi should be meeting up with his team at any moment, and he never stays at meetings longer than he needs to." "Oh, thank Kami," Ino said, throwing her hands into the air. "This guy is more pathetic than—" She paused with a blank look on her face before she threw her hands back up again. "Well, there are too many people to say, but everyone, I suppose." Hinata giggled as Naruto smiled brightly at her. "Ino-chan, you are going to be perfect for this team." Ino struck a pose and smiled beautifully at him. Naturally. Following Hinata's directions to step as she stepped, they made their way out of Kakashi's home, the path much easier since the traps and dangers were mostly already tripped before they even knew they were there and forced to use Hinata's Byakugan. "All right, you guys," Kurenai said, amused, as they all met at the rendezvous point. "You seem to all be in one piece. Did you complete your mission?" Ino bounced up in her seat and flashed the victory sign. "You bet, sensei." She changed her expression from happy to furious as she placed her balled-up fists on her hips. "But you should be ashamed of yourselves for sending us into that pervert's house. It was horrible in there." Kurenai had the grace to look sheepish while Anko outright laughed at Ino. "Girl, it's time you learned that all men are perverts. I mean, look at Naruto," she said, gesturing to the blonde who was simply sitting and watching the proceedings. "The first day we met, and he was talking about making babies with his little girlfriend, there." "Hey!" Everyone ignored Naruto's squawk of indignation. Now, I'll freely admit that Kakashi is one of the worst, but you have to suspect that every man's intention, she ignored, but noted, Naruto's killer intent, is to get into your pants. Or rather, get you out of them. Deciding that was enough of a potentially dangerous conversation, Kurenai interrupted Ino's retort. Anyway, Naruto, it sounded like you used the sealing jutsu over the headset, and we don't see any books on you guys, so why don't you guys debrief and tell us what happened? Naruto nodded and did as he was ordered, slipping easily into debriefing mode and standing at attention. Mission objective was to gather any and all Ika Paradise volumes found within the residence of Hatake Kakashi. After breaking into Hatake's home, we found a massive amount of mostly offensive traps set strategically and defensively. All volumes were found within a study on a single bookshelf that also held a multitude of jutsu scrolls and other miscellaneous things. Each volume was protected with an offensive seal. I used a simple storage seal to take the entire bookshelf, with the intention of copying all jutsu and to give ourselves as much time as needed after we were away from the scene to deal with the frightening amount of defensive measures the lonely and obviously depressed pervert took to keep his erotica safe. Hinata palmed her face as Naruto added in his own unique spin to his debriefing. I also left a ransom note stuck to the wall in case you wanted to do anything with this later or if you want to leave a few extra notes and make him run through some hoops, he said, shrugging. Either way, it wasn't signed and cannot link to us in any way. And since we'll either never give them back, or give them back later, we may as well make the pervert pay for them. Kurenai blinked owlishly as Anko burst into laughter and clapped Naruto on the back. Ha! We'll make a ninja out of you yet, kid! What did the note say, exactly? Kurenai asked. I didn't want a lot of words, so I wrote your protections were not enough, copycat. If you desire your collection back, eat at Mariki Barbecue on Sunday for lunch, and you will receive your instructions, Naruto shrugged. I figured that, if you wanted anything done, we have 5 days to plan and 1 to execute while doing what we can to take on the role of his waiter or waitress. Wide-eyed, both Anko and Kurenai looked at each other and smiled. The kid just set up a perfect assignment for what they were supposed to be learning from them. Well, it looks like we have a team. The 3 genin smiled proudly at each other, pleased with their accomplishments that day. Since Naruto gave us a golden opportunity, we'll work on what we want to happen next Sunday. We'll meet tomorrow morning at 7 right here, alright? Several nods met Kurenai's question and the 2 adults took off to report to the Hokage while the other 3 split up, Ino heading to her home above the flower shop her parents owned and Hinata following Naruto at his request. Hinata fell backwards into Naruto's couch as he walked over to the television in the corner and unsealed a large cardboard box. What is that, Naruto-kun? This is why I had you come over, he said, taking out the tape on top and tossing it to her. Her eyes widened as she saw the title. There are a couple with their names on them, so I thought we should see what they are in case he's been using his Sharingan to force either of them into hurting the other. They were best friends in the past, he scrunched up his face before backtracking, well, our past, anyway. And we never heard about this, so I thought we should look through the tapes and see if we can build a case to take to Gigi if we have to. He took the tape back from her as she got up to look at the titles in the box. How could we have not known about this the first time through? Hinata asked, furious at Kakashi's actions. Kurenai was all but a mother to her the first time through in her life, and Anko, while not nearly as close, was around quite often when Hinata would stay at Kurenai's an extra day or 2 after long missions or after late training nights until Kurenai had started to see Asuma romantically just because Kurenai didn't want Hinata at the Hyuga residence any more than Hinata wanted to be there. What channel does this damned VCR have to be on to make it work? Naruto whacked the top of the black box in frustration as Hinata noticed a new title on one of the tapes, Women's Bathhouse, Anko, Kure, you? Naruto-kun? I don't think these are what we think they. She was cut off by a sudden scream of pain from the now working television and the sound of Anko's commanding voice. Moan for me, my pet. There was a smack as Anko used a flat leather stick against the bare bottom of Yuhi Kurenai, already a bright pink from abuse. Kurenai, who was on her knees and tied to the center of a room by a rope and collar around her neck, did as she was told and moaned through a red, rubber ball gag in her mouth. Oh sweet Kami, Naruto said lifelessly, his eyes glued to the screen. Hinata, her mouth wide open, moved over closer to where he was standing and stared blankly at what she was seeing. I had no idea they were that they did. Her voice trailed off as they saw what happened next, their eyes widening. Very good, pet, Anko said, actually petting Kurenai on the head before removing the gag and standing in front of the still kneeling woman. Now then, be a good girl and please your master. The 2 genin stood in morbid fascination for the next half hour as they watched one of their senseis torture and force the other into pleasing her before the 2 women eventually stopped, kissed and made up, and then left the room, both giggling like Sasuke's fangirls. They watched the empty room on screen for several minutes before they saw Kakashi enter through a window with a canvas sack over his shoulder and take down the camera, watching the door suspiciously the entire time. Hinata-chan, Naruto began, his voice wavering slightly from shock. Was that? I'm not sure, Naruto-kun. Both of them sat heavily into his couch as they tried to process exactly what they had witnessed for several minutes before Hinata broke the silence. I think that, because of all of the titles I saw, that Kakashi has hidden cameras around Konoha. Naruto's eyes widened. What? Hinata nodded as she walked over to the box and grabbed several titles she'd last been looking at and handed them to him. Each of these lists different locations and people. The majority of them are labeled as either a bathhouse or as being a part of the red light district. She looked sadly at the large box and what had to be several hundred hours of broken privacy and stolen moments. Naruto looked to be about ready to pass out. But Kakashi was always a pervert, but this is he's a bloody pervert. Why the hell doesn't he get a girlfriend, for the love of Kami? Naruto was truly beginning to wonder about his involvement with Meito Guy. There was an awful lot of enthusiasm and large number of challenges between the two. I don't know, Hinata said, shaking her head, but I think we should mention these to Kurenai-sensei and Anko-sensei, along with why you thought to hide it from them earlier to be safe, and see what they think we should do about it. Naruto nodded before suddenly jerking back. Hinata-chan, we just watched as both of our sensei got it on, and you want us to tell them about it? He asked incredulously. Hinata simply nodded. We don't have to tell them how much we saw, just what we saw. If they were being controlled, they will realize that, and then we can get this taken care of. If not, she shrugged, they will probably just kill him. Naruto snorted and agreed. Fine. But I still feel like this is going to end badly. Hinata pulled him up from the couch with a groan and pushed him towards the box. Just pack those up again and let's go ask Kurenai-sensei. I won't feel right if we don't get it done sooner rather than later. You know, he said as they exited his apartment, if he did just put up hidden cameras, they are probably going to ask for a king's ransom for his books back. Hinata just giggled. Hinata knocked on the door to her favorite sensei's home while making sure to keep a good hold on the rather fidgety Naruto. It was only a few moments later before Mitarashi Anko opened the door with a raised eyebrow. Is there something we can help you with? Yes, Anko-sensei. We would like to speak to both yourself and Kurenai-sensei if we could. Please and thank you. Anko stepped back and motioned them in, which she was mildly amused that Hinata had to practically drag the shaking Naruto in. She led them to the sitting room where Kurenai was sipping at her tea before looking up worriedly. Is there something wrong, Hinata? Kurenai watched as Hinata forced Naruto to sit down on the couch, and then sat next to him, holding him in place, and apparently using a lot of force to do it. Possibly, Kurenai-sensei. This is actually about something Naruto-kun found within Kakashi's home. She turned to Naruto and gave his arm a squeeze. Naruto-kun? He sighed in defeat as Anko took her seat next to Kurenai. While we were in Kakashi's bedroom, I noticed a cardboard box next to his television and a videotape sticking out of his VCR. He looked around as if checking for quick escape routes before continuing since Hinata had a firm grip on his arm. Anyway, I read the tag on it, and it said Anko torturing Kurenai and a time frame. Worried he may have used his Sharingan to make you do something and then forget it, he rushed, not noticing the wide eyes and pale faces of the two women in front of him. I took the tape and the box and sealed them as well so we would have the evidence if needed. He squirmed in his seat, watching the floor and scratched the back of his head. Anyway, Hinata-chan and I popped it into the VCR to see if it was as bad as we thought, and well, he trailed off, not wanting to say the rest. We saw the two of you playing a bondage game, Hinata supplemented for him. We then saw you leave and Kakashi enter through a window and take down the camera. Hinata saw both women pale when Naruto mentioned the title to the tape and felt that, while Kakashi had certainly done something wrong, both women knew exactly what was on the tape and felt assured that it was nothing more than a hidden camera after knowing what the two women did together. After a few moments of tense silence, Kurenai decided to speak. I suppose you would like an explanation of what you saw then. Kurenai and Anko both shifted uncomfortably, not really thrilled to have such a conversation with two 13-year-olds. Actually, Hinata said, knowing Naruto was all but useless in his embarrassed state, we just wanted to be sure it wasn't something that Kakashi was forcing either of you into without your knowledge or consent. While it seems you did this on your own, he must still be held accountable for his part in it. Kurenai looked at Hinata, her expression somewhere between shock and confusion. You don't want to know why she trailed off as she gestured between herself and Anko, who was looking at the pair in front of her critically. Hinata shook her head and raised a hand in a stalling motion. I thought you may have had feelings for Sarutobi-sama, but I can understand if you and Anko-sensei have feelings towards one another, be they love or lust, and want to act on them. That isn't a problem for me, and it wouldn't be for Naruto-kun, either, if he didn't think you were going to try to kill him for having seen you both naked, she finished, obviously using her own weight to keep Naruto from escaping at this point. Both Kurenai and Anko looked from the children in front of them to each other and back again, surprised as hell that they weren't threatening to out them for their activities or blackmailing them into doing something for them. Homosexual activity, while not exactly against the law, was highly frowned upon within Konoha, even with their pacifist and peaceful views. So, you aren't going to tell us that what we are doing is bad or try to blackmail us into giving you money or extra training or anything? Anko asked, not truly believing her own or Kurenai's luck would hit at this point. They had always believed and accepted that they wouldn't be able to continue their relationship after Kurenai became a genin instructor, but this gave them hope that blossomed in their chests as both children looked affronted at the idea and vehemently shook their heads in denial. No way! Naruto shouted. You're both great people. We'd never hurt you like that. Hinata nearly winced when she realized that Naruto shouldn't know anything about Kurenai yet, and neither should know Anko but as a name in passing. But passed it off as Naruto and attaching to people immediately as he used to when he was this age if they showed the slightest bit of friendship to him. Naruto-kun is correct. You have both been wonderful so far, and as our sensei, you will already be training us, so there is nothing to fear about that, and I certainly have more than enough money while Naruto-kun will be receiving his father's inheritance soon. Money is not something either of us need. She suddenly smiled dangerously at them and held up a finger. However, this means that we won't stop you from doing anything, if you don't stop us. All three people in the room who heard Hinata dropped their jaws in shock. What? All three cried out, causing Hinata to giggle and roll her eyes. We don't be doing anything very bad for a while, but this means you have to try and be understanding of Naruto and myself enjoying a nice cuddle or kiss every now and then. Do so, and we won't begrudge you of the same thing. Anko and Kurenai both realized that she wasn't asking for much, and felt it a fair compromise and nodded. But Kurenai said, glaring at Naruto who shrank back in fear, I draw the line at pants coming off for the two of you. Do you understand? The two teens nodded. Kurenai really wanted to say something about Hinata's bra remaining on as well, but felt that would be pushing her luck. She didn't believe either of them would truly tell anyone about her and Anko, but that wasn't to say that they couldn't change their minds and ask for something else. So, Anko began, beginning to believe the two for the first time, what exactly has Kakashi got in that box of yours? What, if Naruto has harem with Hinata Ino FemHaku FemKyuu, Kurenai Anko, and thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.